what's going to happen, right? Yeah. So I collected some stuff for the discussion.
Oh, cool.
I went digging. I found some muscle and fitness magazines.
Older ones? Like
from when I subscribed to Muscle and Fitness, and they would have, covers with Arnold on it. Or like little small things in the bottom where they advertised that they had an article about him in there.
Oh, yeah.
And then I found I'll show them off as we talk. So
yeah, cool,
I don't know.
Cool.
This is just like a discussion. We're talking about one of our favorite celebs, a big inspiration. Well, for me personally, I think for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So what do you think is a good way to steer the discussion? Like to start from sort of like his biography or jump right into his movies, or what would you like to do?
Oh gosh. Well, what's the most successful? I know there's so much to have at this guy. He's really got a larger, really like a legendary kind of career. You could pick any point of his life, and I guess once he became into America and stuff, and just start talking about things, and it's like he's just done so many monumental things and like really excelled at them too. Not like he just dabbled in it, like he's really, politics. He became a governor of the biggest state in the country, the most powerful state in our country, and he's I think for a lot of people, even people like you'd call laymen who don't really follow the sport or of bodybuilding or pay attention to that stuff, when you say bodybuilding, he's like just the first image that pops into people's heads. You know what I mean? Like he's iconic. And you go down to like Muscle Beach or Venice down there, and the old historical gold gym where they all trained and where so many Olympians and athletes have trained, and he's like painted on the walls there, and he still goes there. He still goes and exercises there and stuff. And but I mean that to me is like he's one of those icons, one of those pioneers of fitness and bodybuilding and health and all that wellness stuff. And you're never going to shake that. I mean, long after he's gone, his iconic pose, you have it on the background there, the little silhouette with
I'll make it small. That you can only see his legs though.
Yeah, but again, most people could actually imagine the rest of the body, because that's how powerful and iconic that pose is. And hey, I'm just saying, 100 years from now, they'll still be painting pictures of Arnold on murals, or bodybuilding type things. You know what I mean? He's cemented into that, and there's not a lot of guys or women even that are. So, he's really excelled.
His name is synonymous with the sport. I mean, when I think of bodybuilding, that's the first name I think of. I don't think of others like Lou Ferrigno or see, others aren't coming to me, but I know several of them. But the first name is Arnold, because he made it. I don't know. Okay, so here I've got his book, his big ass biography. This book is huge. It's huge, but it's so cool. And he's got tons of pictures in here. I'll show you stuff. I mean, all the little lines here are segments where he's got a bunch of pictures. And the Kindle version, if you read it on an iPad, I think it's an iPad, it's also got some extra video stuff and audio things that go along with it. Now, I haven't tested it yet. I do have that version. But this was a fascinating listen. I don't know if you got a chance to start it or not.
I did not. I've just skimmed it over the years, because it is like the Bible of Arnold, basically. It's like you pick it up and you're like, oh, well, I'll get to it one day, as much as I want to read it, and so I just haven't. So, but I will. And I think he wrote a second one, didn't he? He wrote a follow-up book, or
no, I don't think. He's done this. This one I have also. The Education of a Bodybuilder. This is kind of biographical, and I read this one. Whoa, what's this? Oh, I thought it was something that had to do with. It's just little bookmarks, and I don't know if he. I could have swore he did.
I could be misremembering this over the years, but I thought he had, but maybe he didn't. But I know for sure, Total Recall. I have that one on my shelf, and
it's really good. It's so good. It's really long. And like I said, he read the first chapter and then the last chapter, like the first entry and then the last entry. And then Stephen Lang read the rest. I really wish Arnold had read the entire thing. That would have been my preference. But it was very interesting. Just he starts from the time he's a young child. He goes all the way up to when he leaves governorship and he talks about movies that were in the works. Like one of the movies he mentioned in here was Cry Macho, which was going to be directed by Clint Eastwood, and Arnold was going to play the main actor. Oh. And it ended up that because of the scandal, that happened with his housekeeper, Arnold he got dropped from that. And so Clint Eastwood took the role instead. But I would have watched it for sure if Arnold was in it. And I like Clint, but I'm not super, I don't know, I'm not drawn to it just because of Clint, but I would have because of Arnold. He definitely was a draw for me for most things.
Yeah, he's one of those actors. Again, if I see, I have a lot of actors. If I see they're in it, I'll go see. I don't care what the movie. I'll worry about the movie title second. I just Arnold's in it. Okay, I'm there.
I'm there, right? Yeah.
Yes.
But. Oh, and guess what else I found? I've mentioned this multiple times. I found this. I went upstairs in my mom and dad's attic looking for it. Couldn't find it. And then I went into my brother's old bedroom, which used to be my brother Matt, which used to be my bedroom. And I found it in there. And that's where I used to work out when I started doing it's his body shaping for women.
Oh, cool.
I found it. I was so excited. It's like, oh my gosh, I remember doing these. I had my weights in my room, and in the evenings, look, I even have I would check off I guess the ones I was going to add to my list.
That's cool. I had that because he had a standard one, right? Just bodybuilding, I believe, in the 80s one. I can picture him on the cover in his red leotard or whatever the heck that was.
Yeah. I don't have that one, but I remember that he also had, of course, the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, which my brother Matt had, and then I can't remember if he gave it to me, but then I decided I wanted to get the hardcover, and I got that, and then I ended up giving that to Matt. I don't know why I did that, but I did. But I don't have that anymore. But
I have it tucked away somewhere because when I was looking up books, I was like, oh, I have that one, and it's tucked away. I love all those books written by the guys that actually did that stuff. You know what I mean? Not just the little muscle and fitness and flex editors, but like the actual action heroes who dabbled in bodybuilding and whatever. I know Stallone has one, and that was one of the first, I think, exercise books I ever bought. It was called Sly Moves, and I still have it. It's actually pretty cool because he's just so down. Him and I know, clever, and but him and Stallone and Arnold, they remind me of similar guys cut from the same cloth in the sense of how they feel very down to earth and very humble. They have a way of talking to you that's I guess it's not like they're talking down like a teacher talking to a student. They talk on the level, like when you read about them talking about bodybuilding or fitness and health and eating, diet. Just they have a sense of realism about them, and I really appreciate that. And I think that's why I like those guys most. I think, and why they also have resonated with so many people. What was that?
Stallone never competed, did he?
No, he never did anything professional, but I mean, he's obviously another guy that if you look at his long, varied career, he's been one of those fitness icons, basically, even though he's never been a title of anything. He's another face that he's obviously, look at his body over the years. He knows what he's doing to, you know what I mean?
Right. So, yeah, he does.
And he still looks very good for when you're like, oh, he's 70 something now. Oh my God.
Really?
and yeah, and his forearms still look like they could, like Popeye, like he could crush cans with them. You know what I mean? And
jeez.
Anyways,
I believe it.
Yeah, we're going off on a different guy there, but
I know we are.
I like those guys, and I have Dolph Lundgren's book too, and there's a lot of guys that have kind of written down their knowledge, and they're worth checking out too if you like Arnold. But yeah, those are guys I want to hear from. Those are guys that I like to hear their method and their training and their diet and like what motivates them, and especially if they can kind of talk in down to earth ways, not just you imagine the stars and you go for it. Don't let anyone stop in your way. Slay like a queen, a king. And you're like, yeah, I don't want to hear that stuff. Those are Hallmark cards. You know what I mean? I want to hear real guys say like, show me what's in your fridge. What do you eat? How do you do this? Things like that you could really apply. So, so I like those. But
something else I wanted to share. Okay. So I kept this. This was a Parade magazine from 2003.
Oh, yeah. Why not?
When you remember that when Terminator 3 was getting ready to come out?
Yeah, there's a big push. He was all over the TV, everything again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
After they kind of forgotten, they gave up on him for a couple years, you know, and then all of a sudden Arnold that was his little comeback, you know,
and that was like his last oomph before he went into politics.
Right, because that T3 was still a pretty popular. I mean, it's still a very popular film when it came out. I mean, it made a lot of money. I know it didn't make as much as they wanted, but it still made a lot of money.
And it didn't really have the spark, you know, that the first two had. I don't think there's really a way to recapture that. But so Arnold, I am fascinated by his determination, despite what the people were saying around him, and his drive, and how he didn't let sorry, Chris. How he didn't let anybody stop him. He had a funny voice. He left like these little this place with these little, like a poor little podunk town in Austria, and built his way up in bodybuilding there, and then came over to the US and couldn't speak very well at all. Ended up becoming someone who conquered bodybuilding, conquered acting, conquered politics as far as statewide.
Yeah.
It just blows. And he married into the Kennedy family. I mean, it just blows my mind. It's like, what?
I'd settle for doing one of those, you know.
The accomplishments this man has made throughout his life, it's fascinating. Whether you like him or not, it's something that you really can't poo-poo it, because it's not something that most people can achieve, you know. And and he managed to just like take the market on 3 different very distinct fields, you know, bodybuilding, acting, and politics. Yeah. I'm just fascinated and so impressed with the work that he did. But I do remember the very first time I saw him. I mentioned this before. The very first time I saw him, I thought he was so weird looking. Honestly, I think it was a trailer for Conan the Barbarian. And I think I saw it at my grandmother's house because we didn't have a TV, and they were showing a trailer for it. And I was like, wow, that guy looks really strange, you know, because he had this long hair. He was dressed like a barbarian. He had that headpiece on that went down like that. And he had this gap between his teeth, and he had these strange big muscles. And I was just a kid, you know, and I was like, he looks really strange, you know, like, wow, he looked. But I never forgot that. And then I found out years later that particular summer that Conan the Barbarian came out, when my mom and my brothers and I were off in Indiana to visit my grandparents, my dad went to the movie theater to watch that movie. I thought it was kind of funny.
I couldn't watch Conan as a kid because the first one was rated R. So I couldn't rent that one. And I had to rent the sequel, and then you were a little bit lost on what exactly was going on. And I remember not liking it as a kid, but as an adult, I've gone back and watched them, and I like them both now. But that was a fun little memory for me.
I think the second one was the first one that I watched or started watching, and then like halfway through watching that second one, my cousin and I went to the store to get the first one, and then we brought it back and started watching it, and then it got to the scene where he's with the witch, you know, the witch lady, and my aunt turned it off, and we could never finish it. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I was a little annoyed about that because we had paid the rental fee, but it was I think it was Terminator, obviously seeing Terminator, that really kind of cemented him in my brain like forever, and just like it was from that moment, specifically from that moment. And I think I had already seen Terminator when I was watching the Conan's movies, but it was that movie just really cemented him for me in my brain, as far as, you know, an actor, celeb type person. And then I got the Body Shaping for Women book, and that's when I started to work out. I was like 17 years old. I think I was a senior in high school, and that's when my fitness journey began. So here's a Flex magazine.
Oh. What year is that?
This is September 2004.
Oh, okay.
And whose is this? Honestly, I don't know whose this is because I didn't subscribe to Flex. So I wonder if this is one of my, if this is Matthew's. I don't know.
Well, I was mentioning that to you in private, and I've said over the years, but that one thing with like Arnold, I also think as a testimony to how like influential he is in like terms of like fitness and bodybuilding and such is how him being male, he transcends genders, and like how many women I hear say, "Oh yeah, I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger and I wanted to start working out," which is cool and that's great. But it's like usually you hear guys say that, or if a woman looked up, they would look generally up to a female fit role model. But to transcend that into being, I'm as a woman looking at a male and saying I'm taking the motivation and understanding the fitness and the muscularity and all that. I think that really it's a huge testimony to how like iconic and powerful and influential he is. That he's able to jump gender. I mean, to inspire women as much as men, and because I think you're going to be hard pressed to have men even admit that they find women athletes inspirational. You know what I mean? You're not going to hear many of them say, "Oh, I wanted to be just like Rachel McClish." You know what I mean?
Right.
No one's going to say
Corey
that.
Everson, yeah, exactly.
Right. Even though they'll still look at her pictures, but they won't, and they would never admit it.
I get
what I mean?
There was something that he mentioned in his book, and I think this goes as far back as his gym training days in Austria. He was talking about how he felt like bodybuilding should really be a field that is opened up to women as well as men. But at that time it was just a guy thing, but he talked about the little things that he would do to try to bring in women into the fold of bodybuilding, and I think it helped a little, but I think it probably wasn't until, I don't know, maybe the 80s before it started to get a little bit more a thing with women.
Yeah. And it took off really quick. Like when you look at like some of the first women, bodybuilders you'd call them or whatever, and they look very, I hate to say unremarkable. Like a lot of them were just, they were lean and you could tell they exercised a bit and stuff. And then compared to like, when I think of like Rachel McClish, and you had the Corey Everson days, and where it just like all of a sudden the standard for women's physiques just took off. It just made huge leaps and bounds in a very short amount of time. Because you look at the early 80s, what was it, 80, 81, that Rachel McClish became the first Miss Olympia, and then you look by even 5, 6, 7 years into the 80s, how far like she wouldn't even place on stage probably at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you feel like that mass is becoming, because I saw Corey Everson posted something about, what was it? Was something on her Facebook page, like basically talking about if mass was overtaking. It was like an article written maybe back in the 80s about how they were so focused on mass, it was like going to override the actual nice physique and form and stuff like that. Has that, because I don't really follow women's body, I don't follow bodybuilding a whole lot, I'm just sort of peripherally aware of it. Has that become an issue in women's bodybuilding as well?
I'm sure it has. I mean, you can just look at the guys now. Look at how huge they are. They're just bigger and bigger and bigger.
Terrible.
And
then they look like something out of a sci-fi horror movie. They don't look good at all. They really don't.
Well, they just keep making them larger, and it's
bellies, and it's just awful. It's painful to look at it. Honestly,
that's why I love Arnold's classic stomach vacuum, where it's like he didn't obviously had the best abdominal muscles you'll see in the sport, but he was with his vacuum, it almost looked like he was like just like stupidly lean. I mean, just thin, and you're just like, where are your organs? It's just...
Right. And he learned how to. He mastered the art of posing in the right way to sort of show off his body, and he got ballerinas to help him. They show that a little bit in Pumping Iron, but it was something that he focused on, and I feel like it really helped his presence on stage. This is a muscle and fitness, but it's something. Yeah, this was when he was turning 60. So little article in there.
Well, he became a writer for Muscle and Fit. He became a contributor in like before last year, couple of years. What was it? I don't remember when they officially stopped print magazine on Muscle and Fitness, but I know he had his own column in every issue where he'd write a little article and stuff. And
I think he does mention that in his book. I didn't even realize until you said, "Oh, look." Okay, this other one. This is they did like a 60th birthday special.
Oh, cool.
For him. And inside, I remember opening this up. Oh, geez, I'm not gonna be able to show it, the whole thing, but it's like this poster. Shoot, I really should like maybe put it up on the wall, but it's this poster of Arnold, and it's really cool. Let's see, I don't know how well you can show it. It shows him beside his older self, and then it shows him like, dang, it's hard, like different in the 19th. Look, he was such a little baby there.
He looks so funny when he always has a little slicked back, very tight to the head hair, like in the 60s he had, and yeah, it's cute.
I really should put this up on my wall. I just tucked it right away I just tucked it inside the magazine. But yeah, that was, and I remember when I got this, I was like, man, he's turning 60. He's getting so old.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my gosh. And then this is the last one I have of him, a Flex magazine. Again, I guess this is something my brother bought. I don't know. I don't know where it came from. Oh, well, I'm gonna stand corrected. It's got my name on, so I guess I did. I guess I did subscribe to Flex. I just forgot all about it. Muscle and Fitness was the one I remembered the most, just because I don't know. It's so it's a very well known.
Muscle and Fitness was more.
Magazine.
I think Flex got more with the size monsters and the growth and the big. Hard bodybuilding stuff, like you'd see Olympia level stuff. Well, but there are many levels of Mr. Olympia, but generally when you say Mr. Olympia, you're talking about the king title, so yeah, that's what that one is. Muscle and Fitness is good. I like that magazine best, and I was really disappointed when they quit printing it. Just not the same to go Google articles versus
having your hands on the pages and turning the pages. I don't read a lot of physical books anymore, but there is something to be said for being able to manually deal with a book. It's just something about the motions of turning the pages and feeling the book in your hands and looking at the picture. I don't know, just
I get it. I'm with it. I always buy things. I don't think I've ever. And I have a hard time. Sometimes it's just easy to get distracted when you're reading things online, like to see ads or click, oh, what's this over here? I'm going to click this one. I'm going to click. And you don't even, half the time I find myself like I'm reading something and I'll only read like maybe a third of it and then I'm already clicked onto something else. And it's just like, shoot, I got to get my attention span in check here. I survived. I'm not a little 5-year-old anymore, but I don't retain a lot of it. I don't know. And that's just me personally. So I like those Muscle and Fitnesses and Flexes and stuff like that. So. I think Muscular Development is the only one I still see at stores. I just saw it today when I was at the store.
Oh, I don't think I've ever heard of that one.
That's the other one's still, that's the long running one too. But again, that's more geared towards generally. They're ones that put like Jay Cutler on every picture, on every cover, and this huge freak of physique type guy. Anyways, but
okay.
I lost track. What you were talking about?
What were we talking about? We were
some of Arnold and how he was trying to get this women into the sport, and
and how he even talked about.
I was going to make a snide remark, a joke, like, oh no, that's just his pickup line, so he can do those infamous things where he's putting girls on each arm, lifting them. It's just.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I don't know. Maybe there was some of that too. I have no idea. But he talked about how for a promo for the gym or something, he was. I can't remember if it was what city it was in Austria, or if it was in Germany. I cannot remember. But I thought he was like for like a promo for the gym or for bodybuilding in general. He went walking down the street like in his briefs and just nothing else.
Oh,
it was kind of funny. I was like, oh my gosh. And he talked about how, the looks he was getting, but he does not give a crap. He honestly doesn't seem to care.
Well, have you seen what those guys pose on stage in? I mean, the same with women. It's like basically barely anything. And so I think they get comfortable to a degree to where, if you're going to stand on stage in front of an audience of 10,000 people, 100, whatever.
Many people. And he was the one that started packing the shows. Arnold was one of the ones that was responsible for that, because he was talking about how the shows were just, it was like a kind of a niche audience, and it was just like it was very small.
It was a hobby at community centers, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, he started around that time, the pioneers, him, and, you say Dr. Franco Colombo and Lou Ferrigno, all those guys, that was that golden era where it really kicked it off into where you were seeing that they were able to film like New York little arenas and stuff like that. The whole, with Joe Weeder doing the big promotional push and stuff like that. And those are the guys who are at the spearhead. They were leading the charge there. And I think that's one of the reasons why he also was probably right place at the right time type thing, because it could have been anyone. I mean, who knows but I think again, his personality compensates a lot of that too.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think there was something special about him that helped make it.
I just mean I was saying in context of eventually I think the sport would have kicked off with someone probably later down the line or whatever. Lou doesn't have the charisma, I don't think, as much as I love Lou Ferrigno.
He doesn't.
He couldn't carry that torch. But
I met him when he came to our local Comic-Con and went up and talked to him, shook his hand, and his hand is like a dinner plate. It's huge.
Yeah.
He's so freaking big. It was like his hand ate mine.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool to say hi to him.
Those are cool guys. I wish I could have. I told you about this back when he was kind of having his like third or fourth win comeback, whatever the heck you want to call it, back in like 2000. The early mid 2010s when they made Arnold a push again, when they pushed for him to be in the culture again, and that was kind of his last hurrah. He didn't click in with audiences anymore.
In the bodybuilding culture,
not bodybuilding, but movies, pop culture. He had the supplement line. There was this push he was trying to come back into movies and culture, and it didn't click. Pretty much everything he was in kind of tanked and lost money, but he had that supplement line with Muscle Farm, the Iron Arnold line that I think Walmart even stocked for a while. But that was kind of cool. But it kind of fizzled out. But they had him as a surprise guest at Mr. Olympia in 2014. I remember that, and that was so cool because I knew that.
Were you there?
Yeah, that's the year I went in 2014 and 15.
Yeah, all right.
And I'd love to go again, but they just keep shifting it around, and with all this, you can't fly, and you can't. I don't want to deal with it right now. But
that nonsense, I know.
No, it was cool because we didn't. No one, I guess, people in the know down there knew, but like online, they had no announcements. He was a surprise guest speaker. He popped up. They were doing some.
That was so exciting.
Well, yeah, and then you see him come out there, and the guy's just. He's such like a force. Like you're sitting in the grandstands of this arena, and all of a sudden he comes out, and it's just like, oh my God, I can feel Arnold's here. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's so like captivating, and everything this guy says is just like so motivational and good and hypnotic, and it's like you leave hearing him talk, like you see him talk in person, and you leave wanting to be a better person. Like it's really, he's one of those guys, and
he's very inspiring.
It was fun because it was like, it made me think of Tommy Boy, if you ever saw the movie with Chris Farley and David Spade and stuff.
But that's come up before in movie discussion.
David Spade said this thing about Chris Farley's dad in the movie. He's like, he was such a good salesman. He was such a good speaker. He could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. And then I was like, and so immediately that analogy that I heard all my life, I saw Arnold, and I'm just like, that's him. He could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. He could sell, I don't know what he's selling, but I'll take a dozen of them. He's like,
right?
That's how,
I'll buy it, whatever it is.
Yeah. He could convince you of anything, and not to say that in like a deceptive way, but he was just such energetic, charismatic. Yeah, and maybe he was selling you motivation for free that you just took away, and I just think that he I'm just trying to say it was a testimony to seeing him live in person, like how powerful this guy was. And, you know, and I love telling that story because people who like Arnold are like, oh, that's really cool. You got to see him talk. And it was like, yeah, we didn't. And I got to see Sylvester Stallone there earlier in the day too. We knew he was going to be there, but we didn't know that Arnold was going to be giving a speech. And so that was cool. But a lot of people, I love it when they're like, it's like, to me, it's like this jealous kind of bitter person who's like, oh, I heard he's so short in real life. And you're like,
well, he has shrunk, you know.
Well, he's 6 foot, you know, so, and that's, he's like, what, 6 feet tall, which isn't,
I think he was
I think people get,
at his height, at his, oh,
okay.
I am hopped up on Sudafed, so I'm not all there.
Well, regardless, 6 feet. I mean, I'm saying he's not a short person. I don't know who started saying that and parroting that. I think it's just one of those things that people like to, they get kind of a little joy out of pointing out something they perceive as a fault against someone they might be not fond of or bitterly jealous of. I don't know, but it's like 6 feet is not small. Let's just give him 6 feet. I know a lot of men that would love to be 6 feet. Like if you said, do you want to be 6 feet? Oh, hell yeah. Guys want to be 6 feet, right? So to me, it just seemed like a stupid little comment because he's not a short guy. He's not small when he's on stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So don't fall for that one. I'm dispelling that myth right now.
Yeah.
It's not that it matters if he is short, and short men are not a bad thing. I'm just saying.
I do know that people do shrink as they get older. So if he's not as tall as he was back then, but I know he's not like a 5'6" or anything like that for sure. But my brother saw him a few years ago. I can't remember, something up in Ohio.
That's where he does his Arnold classic.
Maybe
he does it.
I thought it was in Ohio. I can't remember. Anyway, he was saying how that he did see him smaller than he expected, like shorter than he expected. But I think part of that was also that, you know, when you see someone in the movies, you see them on film, they just look so much larger than life. And then when you see them in real life, you've like maybe painted them to be so huge, you know, in your brain. And then when you see them, it's like, oh, they're like a normal, you know, they're just a person. They're just like this normal, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm sure that had a big factor in it too. He's an action star, so they sell him as being bigger than they are on everything. It's all about image and size. And I know what, like Steven Seagal and Dolph Lundgren guys, those ones are like 6'4", 6. I think one Dolph's 6'5". I don't remember what, but I know those guys are legitimately tall fellas, you know. But so maybe compared to when all three of them are standing together in those old Planet Hollywood pictures, maybe Arnold does look comparatively smaller. But
a little smaller, yeah. How tall is Sly, or was like at his?
I don't know. I think he's 5'10" or 5'11" or something like that. Okay, I've heard that too. Oh, he's only like 5'3", and I'm like, well, no, that's like Mr. Miyagi size. Stop it. You know, it's just.
But I didn't think he was like as tall as Arnold. I always thought he was.
No, shorter. He's not. He's not. He's shorter, and I've seen him in person. I got pictures of him. I took so many pictures, I couldn't believe it. It's like, I'm like, oh my god, if I could, like, I'm within like a stone's throw of, I can see him. It's like, you know, it was just like so surreal, you know, and you can see him through his little entourage, the Stallone anyways, through his little entourage. He came down on the fitness floor, you know, Arnold did not. So that was, but I know Arnold's a bigger international star than Stallone, so that might account for it. But maybe his paycheck was higher. Maybe he needed more money to walk downstairs. But
maybe so. Yeah. I remember my brother told me when he was
Hercules Goes Bananas. Sorry. Hercules.
Oh, that movie. He was saying how that when he was an extra in the first Creed movie, he was like a background person in the crowd or something. And but at that time, Stallone wasn't mingling at all with people in between takes. He would go off, and he was saying how that Michael B. Jordan would come and, you know, talk to the extras and stuff like that. But I don't know. I guess maybe sometimes the older some people get, the less they sort of want to do stuff like that. And also, when you're up there, everybody wants a piece of you, and maybe you just get a little tired, you know, of that.
You saw where that one guy jump kicked Arnold in the back.
Yes, what the heck?
And like, what the hell? What was the point of that? And it's like, okay, for one, to me, what kind of cracked me up was this guy got this long running. He did this big jump kick, got him right in the shoulders, and he just kind of like leans forward a little and turns around, like, what was that? You know, and it's like, what's going on? You just jump. For one, you jump kicked like a 70-year-old man almost. So even if you did happen to like knock him over and hurt him. It was like, congratulations, 28-year-old, you knocked over a 70-year-old man. I'm sure you're feeling really good about yourself.
So
but
dumb.
just to the testimony that how old he was, and he just, and obviously taking care of himself all his life, and he just kind of like barely flinched forward. I mean, you can watch the video on YouTube. It's almost
I saw it.
I mean, for the audience guys here, watch it. It's it's like guy did a flying jump kick at Arnold and barely even, just kind of might have blew him a kiss. It's just like
stupid, stupid. I wonder what happened to that guy. I would have loved it. I would have loved it if Arnold had turned around and just like decked him or something.
That would have been cool. But I could picture Arnold probably.
At him, but I would have liked it. But he wouldn't do that. Arnold's not. He doesn't seem to be that nature. I
can almost picture him trying to like connect with the guy and go, what was wrong? Why did you want to do that to me? And try and give him like, I could picture Arnold doing something like taking the high road, the time to reach out and see what was the inspiration for that. You know what I mean? I could see him doing that.
Did we ever find out what that was about?
They might have. I don't know. Maybe someone was mad because they didn't like Terminator Genesis. I know. But
maybe mad because from his days as a politician. Some people did not like him at all as a politician. That kind of comes with the territory, it is what it is.
I was so excited when he ran for governor. I was like this, 17-year-old kid, and I was just like,
I was so happy for him.
I didn't even know what party he was with, what his views. I didn't care. I was like, I want Arnold Schwarzenegger as my governor. That'd be so cool. And I hope he campaigns as the Terminator and just wears black sun. You didn't have to say anything. Just wait. And, like they could be having a governor's debate and he'd just go, talk to the hand, and that would be it. And I'd go, oh, Arnold won, Just,
you remember when he was having the debate? I can't remember. Ariana Huffington? No, Huffington, right?
Ariana Grande?
No.
Just kidding. No, I don't.
They were having like the debate, and he got in some trouble for like saying he made some sort of comparison between her and basically comparing her to the female Terminator in Terminator 3, and how he made some sort of reference about how he took care of her. Basically he shoved her head into the commode or whatever. There was something weird, and people were just like, oh, they were so up in arms about that. They were so mad about that. But it's like,
it's a movie.
I know. It's obviously he's not.
He's not going to grab her head and like hit her with a urinal, like rip a urinal off the wall. If you believe he can rip a toilet out of the wall and smash it on somebody, hey man, I don't know what to tell you.
I know. But
wouldn't that normally be flattering for a woman, at least at that time, to be compared to Kristanna Loken? I thought she looked.
Yeah, she was. She was okay in that film. She's never really done much of anything since then. But
she was Blood Rain.
Yeah, but I don't think it went.
No, that movie didn't do anything.
No, it didn't. But I kind of was expecting, I don't know, maybe I was expecting that she was going to have the physique of like a Linda Hamilton or something. Not that she would need to, right? Because she's a Terminator, so that's not necessary. But you sort of equate that with, when Robert Patrick showed up, he wasn't big, but he was very lean and sculpted.
Right, and if we see him in this little diaper scene where he's wearing like the underwear for the green screen shots, like he's like very.
Which one is that? What?
T2. If you see some behind the scenes photos like of him, where he's basically in just a pair of underwear, doing with green screen capture stuff. I saw it on Facebook recently, but I'm just saying you can see that he's actually legitimately in very like good lean shape. He wasn't just very thin, he was actually in very good shape. And and I suspect Kristanna Loken was like that too, because I know they made a big to-do about him, Arnold training her to put on muscle and stuff, and she claimed she put on 15 pounds of muscle, and who knows if it was just that or she just put on 15 pounds in general. But she actually, but the point is, again, she was just covered the whole movie, like in that goofy little crocodile skin outfit, or whatever that was.
Except for the beginning when she walked across the street and she was naked. You saw her a little bit, she wasn't very sculpted. I didn't feel like, she looked okay. She looked fine as far as she wasn't like out of shape, but I'm so
her butt
spoiled
looked big.
by
I don't know.
I'm so
no, but like in a complimentary, like a athletic way. I'm not saying that even like as a pervy way. I'm just saying, I just remember thinking that as like, oh, she probably, I don't know, as a teenager just learning this stuff, But
I'm sure she did work herself very hard. But I think I was so spoiled by Linda Hamilton. Now, when I see anyone associated with Terminator and they're female, I'm like, you need to look like her, otherwise you're just not legit.
Well, remember they wanted China, so there was the internet rumblings.
Right. There had been talk of her.
And she was she was like she looked like a very strong woman. So
she would have been a pretty convincing Terminator.
I would have probably believed her, but I think maybe that just wouldn't fit into the Terminator lore of, obviously, if they can put Robert Patrick, who just looks very nondescript, very unimposing, and then all of a sudden they're going back to TX is supposedly an upgrade, but now she looks like the female Arnold. I wouldn't buy that plausibly. As good as it would probably look, it would nag me, I think.
In answer to this question, Gabriel says, I'm not from the States, but he's curious, how did he do as governor according to your opinion? So I am all the way on the other side of the country, but obviously anything Arnold did as far as politics, it made headlines, right? Because it was national. Yeah. I guess it depends who you talk to. Some people loved him. Some people hated him. Some people felt just kind of meh about him. Obviously, in his book, he, of course, sings his praises. But he also admits in his book where he went wrong politically, different steps that he took that weren't, that he misjudged, or his ideas were too big and he just assumed too much, and how he had to figure out, how he had to work with people.
Yeah.
So he doesn't sing his praises all the time. He seems like he's pretty willing to admit when he screws up. And he does talk about that several times in here. I don't remember a lot of the specifics that he spoke of with regard to the politics and stuff. But I guess if you talk to any Californian, they would have a thing or two to say. Like, I know my brother Timothy voted for him. I was like, man, I wish I could vote for Arnold. Just because a lot of it was just sentimental, just like I love Arnold so much. And I'm like, I was so happy when he won. And some people consider Arnold a rhino in a lot of ways.
Especially as time's gone on, but
yeah.
But I think that was one of the other things too, is that he seemed too what's the word, moderate? Like I see a lot of Republican people that just really just like shake their head at him now and kind of like, oh my God. But then he was too centrist, so obviously the Democrat people didn't side with him because he ran on the Republican ticket, and it's kind of like that's a hard road to walk when you're kind of a middle left or right. Is it? You're going to be fighting people on both sides. I mean, hard.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because everybody wants you to be, if you're not all the way in lockstep on one side or the other, well, you're just no good. It's like most people are on the middle. Yeah. They're in the middle as far as stuff like that goes. But politicians, it's pretty difficult for them to walk that line without, like you said, being hated on either side. That's just the way.
Well, look where California is in hard shape now. It's like
California.
And here I am out in Seattle, so I can't really say anything about it, because I mean, it's like the only time you hear Seattle mentioned is when it's just like a groan. Oh,
I know.
It's just like and you're like, oh, what happened, man? So who knows if that was his if he had any hand in that? I can't say, but it. I was too young really to pay attention to his policies. I remember being young and buying into that. Oh, Republicans are bad, so I just agreed with that, But then I didn't care what was Arnold. I was like, I don't care, it's Arnold, So.
Well, he was a Republican. Well, like he wasn't afraid to say he would, but also back then when he was very openly, when he's sitting down at dinner with the Kennedys, kind of having these little. The bantering sort of discussions with them. It never really sounded to me like things were ugly between him and the family at all. But obviously Maria would run off and she would support her family in the elections that her family was involved in, and Arnold's over here supporting the other politicians over here, like the Republicans. So I'm sure that made for interesting conversation.
Yeah, but that's politics, man. Because you got to see those people that are always at each other's throat. And it's like it's a big dog and pony show, man. Because it's just like you'll see them eating lunch together 2 hours later. And you're like, I thought you guys just said you wanted to throw each other in jail and impeach and
right.
And then they have their correspondence dinners, and you're like, oh, you guys are just full of shit. You just,
Yeah, they are. Most of them are.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. Let's not.
No, I know. But no, to answer the question, even though I was too young to really pay attention to his policies at the time, I mean, obviously you can hindsight them as much as you want, but at the time I was too young to have an opinion other than I just thought it was cool to have the Terminator as your governor, and that I admit that's all it took.
Right? I wish he'd been my governor.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I really wish he would have been the state of Washington governor. I would have loved that.
Totally, they are all in the same. Yeah, for sure, they are all in the same. Most of them are, unfortunately.
I think a great testimony, and I don't know if a lot of people paid attention to it. Look, when Donald Trump won the election in 2016, and they had that dinner, the presidential whatever, and Hillary Clinton, he was telling the joke about Hillary Clinton, she bumped into me and said, "Pardon me," and he goes, "Oh, I'll have to wait till I'm in office," and she's sitting there, and she's laughing away at the joke too, and I'm like, that's a perfect example of it. You guys were just talking about how she was guilty of jail-worthy crimes, which I think.
And he said she would be in jail if he was president.
And she laughed about it right there in front of the whole night. And I know she's just playing politics. She has to laugh. She can't throw a fit. She's a career politician. She knows how to take a punch to the face. You know what I mean? She knows how to take it on the chin. But to me, that was just like a symbolic moment. Like, yep, that's how they are. They talk about putting each other in jail. They talk about, and it's just a game to them. It's all dog and pony show. And so that was the perfect example of, yeah, you see, they're always at each other's throat for the cameras and in front of Congress and grandstanding. But when it comes to the real world, and when it comes to behind the curtain, they're not really afraid of each other. So.
Yeah, they're very effective at riling people up, and the media helps them along the way.
Oh yeah.
And that really annoys me. I'm going to show off a couple of books I have related to some Arnold movies, which this actually was like reprinted because this was a Stephen King book, and they printed this when the movie came out. I'm not a huge fan of The Running Man, actually.
Really?
Okay. Did you ever read the book?
I started reading it as a kid, but I didn't get anything about it. I was too young, so
it ends differently. It ends differently.
Oh, sorry, I got a dog going off here.
Oh,
sorry,
one second. No problem.
Sorry, I'm just gonna go here. She's taken care of now. But no, I never. That was published as Richard Bachman before Stephen King became Stephen King.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was in a collection, and I know they had to republish that one. To capitalize on that it was actually Stephen King's story. But I love the satire of that one. Like I felt it was really that had Jesse Ventura, who he'd reunite with in Predator.
I completely forgot he was in that because honestly, I think I've only seen Running Man 2 times. I saw it once in the theater because my dad and I we were at the beach and my dad and I went to go see it. And then I saw it later, like on video or whatever. And I completely forgot Jesse Ventura was in there. I feel like I should rewatch it now. Maybe I'll appreciate it more.
They both were two bodybuilders who turned into politicians and whatever, the actors. But I loved, there was a line in that Running Man that always stuck with me. There's just kind of this satire where the guy goes, he's on the phone. Yeah, get me the Justice Department, Entertainment Division. And I just thought that was just, it's always a great little one-liner with like how cynical the future looked, and I liked that. I actually liked Running Man. It was a darker, that was still when Arnold was kind of, young into his movie, into his being an action star career.
Right.
And he took on some dark, like a lot of his films were kind of dark compared to, they weren't
was one of those,
and they weren't as fun. They weren't as fun, because later on he became known for the one-liners and there was almost like a kind of, I don't know what the word is, a gleefulness about what, you're watching him kill all these bad guys and you liked it, you know what I mean? And it was okay to kind of revel, like, it's kind of fun watching him drop people off cliffs, and stuff like that. And but this one seemed like it still was one of those where he was kind of taking it a little seriously and that there was some pretty dark, there was some heaviness to the killing, I guess, is what I'm saying. So I liked Running Man. I liked it. And I thought there was good social satire in there too. And I think you should recheck. Yeah. You should check it out again.
Probably.
Watch it with maybe some of the look for some of the dark comedic elements in there too. Mm-hmm. Might appreciate it more. I don't know. I mean, it's not Last Action Hero funny, but it's.
No, it's Last Action. Now that was definitely a movie that grew on me because when I first saw it, I was like, But then later I returned to it, years after the initial viewing, and I was like, this movie is actually pretty dang good. I really, really enjoy it. And it's risen in the ranks for me for sure. This movie I always liked.
Red Heat. Yeah.
I thought
I have that book too. So.
Do you really? Cool.
Oh, I got a bunch. I'm looking at my shelf here, and I got Last Action Hero. I can see that right now.
Oh, you got that. I don't have that, but I also got this. You can see I read the heck out of this book.
I was actually going to say I got Predator 2. I can see it also. And that one is based on the original, where you see the monster is described as, though the Predator monster is described how he originally was filmed. Not.
I haven't forgotten about that, Terry. That is on my list. I will watch that. Oh, and then of course, I did not drag all my DVDs down here that I have of Arnold because that's just, I sort of already showed off my Terminator collection, but I got this A&E biography of Arnold Schwarzenegger a long time ago.
Had to mail or call the number for that one?
I think I ordered it online, actually.
Oh.
And so, of course, the Terminator, and then
that's the book, right?
Yes, the book.
That first one's worth money if you ever want to sell it, FYI.
I will not ever sell it. Terminator 2, which the movie has a much better ending. In the book, did you read the book?
No, I have not. I'm not T2. I've had it for years. I've never read it.
Okay, so in the book, he just steps off the platform and falls down into the steel.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's kind of anticlimactic. Because one of the best scenes in T2 is the end when he's being lowered down into the steel. I mean, that's just such a, it has this surprising emotional impact on it, or, you get, for me anyway, and he's just a machine, right? But for some reason, I just, that scene, I loved it. And then of course I got Terminator 3. And so that's my Arnold stuff.
You should get the T3. They had the spin-off novel. They had 2 supporting novels on there. And
did they?
Yeah, and Dawn of the. They had a lot. That's what Terminator 3. I think really. I don't have all the hate for it, man. Because it was like I said, I was 16, 17 when it came out, and that summer, T3 stuff was everywhere. They had so many books, they had video games, they had all these awesome McFarlane toys, and I know you have one of them. And
I do.
I don't know for T3. There was a cool one, where it was you can tell there's a little bit of engineering to it because he still, the toy, you could fit the casket on his shoulder, and you'd plug it in there, and you remember the cemetery scene where he's escaping and he's carrying the coffin and he's got the machine gun too. So the toy, you pose it and he's holding the casket in one hand and the machine gun in the other. I mean, it looks freaking awesome, and you're just that took a little bit of effort to put together. Plus, this was the time when McFarlane toys were really looking really lifelike. I mean, as lifelike as we'd seen up until that point. Anyways, it was this cool movie, and I think Terminator 3, that I had the books, man. I bought anything Terminator 3 and Arnold I could find at that time, and I got a coffee cup still in the box. I think I was telling you about that.
Oh my goodness gracious!
From T3 and I have the poster. I mean, I had a poster, but I also have a 2004 would-be calendar for Terminator 3 that I never opened. Yeah.
Oh wow, so, that's so cool.
I really was going all out, and plus it helped that I just got my first job, so I hadn't so much stupid fluff money to spend on stupid things that I never had in my life before, So I spent a lot of it at Suncoast Motion Picture buying Terminator memorabilia, or Sam Goody would have them, and so that movie really, I love T3 because I can't hate it, man. I gotta watch it, and I just it just takes me right back to that high school days, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, but I don't hate it really. Honestly, the only Terminator movie I absolutely hate is the latest one that came out. I'm not super crazy about all the sequels, but I know you've got fondness in your heart for it, but I was so pissed at the missed opportunity. And
no, I have more disdain than I do appreciation, to be honest. I just say that I can watch it as a serviceable action film.
It's a good action film.
Linda Hamilton being back, I liked that, and I liked Arnold being back. So I thought Arnold was the best. Honestly, him and her were the 2 only parts of the movie I liked, and everything else between their scenes is just filler. I'm just okay, waiting for the next Linda scene, And
I I was so I just remember walking. I remember I had talked to in answer to your question, Terry. Yes.
Oh,
I do have this.
Yeah, and I actually have. I wish I had a way to post
look at
picture.
The detail.
Yeah, those McFarlanes look really good at the time. And there was a 12-inch one. That's a little guy, right? Like just a normal.
Just definitely not 12 inches.
Okay, because he made a 12-inch one, which is very valuable now, but it looks even more realistic. And
here's where he's all messed up here. Mm-hmm. This was obviously the scene when they had just busted into this. Okay. So I don't know. I don't remember his face being that jacked up in this pose in this scene. That jacked up. See, I don't remember that. But this is obviously the scene from when he was walking through Sarah and John had run off, and he was going to confront the T-1000.
Before he lost his half an arm.
Yeah, before he lost his half an arm.
But I have a model. That was another thing I was going to say with the models and statues that he has. I personally had the Gentle Giant. I have a chrome. I'm looking at it right now. A bust of the TX, the Terminatrix from Terminator 3.
Oh, okay.
And it's actual chrome modeled, and it has the individual number written on the bottom. And I remember paying $50 for that back in 2003. And you got to think that was on, minimum wage salary paycheck. So that was a lot of money for a teenager to put into a bust.
That was a lot of money, Derek.
So I was very proud to have that one. I still like it. I still think she looks cool. I just, I wish I could have got the Arnold ones.
I wish her suit had been black, like Arnold's. I wasn't crazy about the burgundy color. Something about that. Didn't care for that. I was like, the suit's cool, but the color's not so cool.
I think it was just probably one of those times, look in the early 2000s, they had a lot of those kind of soft colors. Like, it didn't, maybe they tried to make her too timely, but.
I don't know.
Oh, there was someone who mentioned when they change too much per sequel, it feels cheap. Yeah, I think that's because that's one thing I hate is with these reboots trend that we have is like how many times do they have to reboot something, so to speak, start over before we say, I'm just tired of you guys. I've given you enough of my money, but
right.
What they did Salvation, and they told us we were going to get a whole trilogy of films, and then they bailed on that, and they gave us Genesis.
Salvation was a disappointment.
Oh yeah, it was way too gritty and dark, but it also felt almost a juvenile in the finished film, like the script they had, like with the Marcus being the hybrid, whatever thing they tried, and do you remember that Terminator Salvation, where he ended up being the hybrid Terminator, but it was like this big reveal. But
he had this heart, and then they gave John Connor the heart. In the heart
and that's how the finished film ended.
Yeah, but I think in the wasn't John Connor supposed to die in Salvation? Like he really was legitimately supposed to. That was the original.
They scripted a few endings like that, and one of them was he was going to die and become the face of Skynet through the heart transplant or whatever thing they had, which they ended up picking up part of that story thread or repurposing it, obviously for Genesis. Mm-hmm. You saw where Skynet had basically assimilated John Carter now. John Carter. John. See, there's a slip. But John Connor. Sorry, that's the first thing when I first saw the trailer for John Carter. I remember just in my head going, John Connor. It's like, what the heck is this crap?
Right,
apparently that story's been around for forever. But I didn't.
Yeah, since the first Terminator, I believe.
No, Genesis picked up that mantle and carried on with the idea of Skynet. Taking on John Connor as a product of theirs or whatever it was, and again, Genesis got dismal results, and so they started over and went with Dark Fate. And again, it was like 3 misfires in a row. When do we just say enough's enough?
I really wish John Connor had come. Listen to me. I wish James Cameron had directed that movie. I wish he would have focused his efforts on something like that instead of Avatar. And I will be forever...
Sorry, which sequel did you want him?
Dark Fate. I wish that he had done Dark Fate, but or even Terminator 3. I mean, I wish he'd focused his attentions more on Terminator as opposed to some of the other stuff he branched out and did. But I'm still pissed at him for lying about Edward Furlong's appearance. in Dark Fate, and he just flat out lied at the Comic-Con. That just made me so mad when I remember coming out of the theater, and I talked to one of the managers at the theater, and he had seen it the night before because they pre-screen the movies to make sure everything's okay with the copy and all that. And he had told me that, like, he gave me good vibes about it, like positive vibes about it. Remember, I had not seen any of the trailers, but I had heard people rumbling about it. I'd seen comments being made and just trying to avoid it. So I remember I came out of the theater and caught his eye. He was like behind concessions, and I caught his eye, and he like was studying me to see what my reaction was. And I'm like,
yeah,
no, that movie's not going to do it. It just, it felt like it was just a rehashing of the John Connor storyline with a woman. They just put a woman in her place, and then of course they killed John Connor off in the first 5 minutes. What the heck?
Right. And that was kind of like, I know we have that trend now where it's just like, you feel like the agenda of the PC driven, where they want to take any strong male character and go, oh, let's just turn into a woman. It's a new movie. And you're like, no, that's not
what happened in this movie. That's absolutely what happened.
And that's just makes it feel like, and that was just another example of where it becomes agenda driven, to where they just are so desperate to have strong women in a movie that they don't worry about anything else. I mean, look at Ghostbusters, look at this one, and Dark Fate, where it just felt like I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't care for any of them. I didn't care about anything, and it happened in that movie.
She was trying to be so badass, and it was just laughable. Like
she was freaking looked like Dora the Explorer put cornrows in her hair.
Right, I couldn't. It was just like, and then she's like, she's gonna fight, and I just got chills at how bad it was. Like just her delivery, the whole storyline, and then how she's playing around with the gun, and then in just a few moments she's able to start, hitting bullseyes and basically knock the bottles or whatever the heck they were shooting at. It was so cringy.
It was like Rey's sister, Rey Skywalker's sister. She just like the same thing. It's just like they just, but and to be honest, and that just shows like how so much of a misfire this film was. Is that the guy, the director, the Miller guys was like, oh, I didn't want Arnold in the movie. I was really adamant. I didn't want this, strong masculine guy. The thing is, we're trying to show that that's not what strength is. And you're like, he was the best part of your movie, and you didn't want him to begin with.
You had to have your arm in a movie without him.
So it's like, now take Arnold out of the movie, and what do you got? You got a Linda Hamilton. So you got what? Maybe one. I don't know, you're firing on 2 out of your 8 cylinders there, and you should be grateful that Arnold was even in your movie, because he was one of the only good things about it. And Dark Fate, just when I talk about it, I can rip it to pieces. But like I said, if it's on TV and I'm watching, and I'm just kind of half brain dead watching something out of the corner of my eye, it's a serviceable action movie. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I thought Arnold was funny, like when he was the Carl, his name was Carl now,
Yeah, he sells drapes.
Yeah, amen. Honestly, to that, Chris.
Derek, I don't think I could rewatch this movie. I'm still like, when I came home and I did my review, and I think I was kinder in my initial review, but as time went on and I just think about it more, the more pissed I get. And so it's like, I don't even want to watch this anymore, because they had this wonderful opportunity. Linda Hamilton finally came back, and Arnold's back. And I thought Edward Furlong was back. And I thought this was going to be about them all having to do whatever, like something else had happened. I thought it was going to be like John Connor as an adult and whatever struggles he was going to be having and all of that.
Well, I saw pictures of Edward Furlong long before that, and I knew that he was not. They're not going to put him in a high-profile movie. He's not doing particularly well.
He was supposed to have been straight. I don't know if that was true, but
I mean, you look at him; he doesn't look like he's taking care of himself, like physically. I mean, aside just kicking addiction or whatever, he looks very haggard and not to be mean, but they're not going to put. Generally speaking, unless those people are guaranteed to make money, they're not going to put those kind of people in high profile movies like that, and they're not going to hedge $150 million bet with them part of it. You know what I mean? But I thought the levity that Arnold brought for one of the first, I guess he dabbled in it with the other Terminators, but I thought he had some good. I love the scene where he was like talking about the draperies, like, you know, he that was a business he ran, because you'd think it's a very easy decision to pick, but you cannot just, and it was just like this machine like devotion that you would imagine a machine with no sense of humor, with no talking about like
Lord.
that kind of seriousness about the quality of drapes and the pattern of drapes you're picking. And I laughed at that stuff, and I just have to think, you know, that provided some levity, so I liked that. And when he was saying how he was a very funny guy and a good listener, and you're just kind of like, oh, see, if he would not have been, he was like the saving grace to the film to make it even watchable beyond just the action pieces, I guess. Anyways, I keep repeating myself on that one, but that's my Dark Fate thing. If Arnold and Linda make it watchable to me personally,
yeah, I wish,
because I still think Linda looked good. Like, I still think she looked pretty. Like, she looked like a badass when she's walking around.
Well, she
did.
I'm like, she did go through training. I mean, she went back into training for it. It was obviously harder for her because she was like, what, 30 years older practically. But I wish that I could have enjoyed it. I really do. I hate it that I don't like it.
See, why couldn't she be the strong female role model they need versus the little girl they picked who didn't exercise, and then it's like,
it also these little snarky undertones that she inserted, because at the time she thought that the girl was supposed to be the mother of the savior, and she was like putting these little comments in there like, you're just a womb, you know, that sort of thing. And I was and it seemed like they were really inserting like sort of pro-choice type messaging in there, and it's just what they did with her character. She became so bitter and nasty, and it's just like she was completely different from the character she was in T2. Now, yeah, in T2 she was completely different than she was in T1, but it was still along the same plane. She was still fundamentally the same good person, you know. Yeah. But in this one, she was just I don't know. I
thought she had in part 2. She had that. Linda had that almost like an instinctual motherhood protection, you know. Does that make sense? Like, she was really a terrible, like, nurturing mother. She was horrible, but I mean, like, when it became time to protect him or you know, stop the end of the world, she basically was just selfless about it and just went into harm's way. And I thought that was, and really got hurt and was willing to kill other people. And I just thought that was really, really cool, how she almost became kind of feral in this sense of
feral. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
Like, you know, and that to me, what I was thinking of when they, not to, you know, when they say, oh, look up to a strong woman, like, oh, cool, we love Sarah Connor, she's great. No, that's not the strong woman we're talking about. And you're like, oh, okay, who are you talking about? I'm not thinking of Ashley Judd or Madonna here. I'm thinking of Linda Hamilton. I'm sorry. That's just.
I think I actually like Genesis more than Dark Fate. And a lot of people hate Genesis. Yeah.
Well, and I think, Genesis was a good, again, in the same, it was like a popcorn flick, you know? And I thought the 80s scenes were actually done pretty well, to be honest, to give it credit. I thought, but I thought a lot of the roles were miscast.
I do too. Like Kyle and Sarah, I was not impressed. Yeah. But the storyline, I liked the different sort of twist they took with it. How he went back and he saved her as a little girl. And I did like the humor in there, the humor between Kyle Reese and the Terminator, and how he was all protective of her because he was like this father figure. Right. And he felt, remember that scene where they're like working with guns or ammo or something, and they're like almost having this little competition with each other. Remember that?
And he's just like eyeing him up, like with that machineness of like, you're not worthy of my daughter, you know, or something like that. And
it was funny. It was so, and then of course his poor hand, you know, it like something happened with his hand. I was like, oh, this is actually kind of sad because Arnold's getting old too.
Yeah. And he did take kind of like a fatherly role, like he took with John Connor in part 2. Well, I guess a surrogately, a loose father figure type role that he had. Yeah, and you can see that he was continuing that in now with Sarah. And I like that scene where what did he say, like, have you mated or something like that? And it was just like, okay, like, oh God. And it was like, he just didn't get it. It was just so like machine-like. You know? It was just,
that, to me, I don't know. To me, that was, it was more enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think that's another fault of Dark Fate comparing it to Genesis. Was Genesis has a sense of lightheartedness to it. I know they had aspirations to make it into a new trilogy, but I thought that Salvation was very gritty, dark, almost to an unpleasant degree. But if you watch it in the right mindset, you can see, okay, it's a dirty future, whatever. I get it. I can't say it's pleasant, but I get what they did. But Genesis went the other way to where I think it was almost kind of sanitized. It seemed there wasn't a whole lot of...
I think it was PG-13, wasn't it?
Yeah, if I remember right, it was.
Wait, was Salvation PG-13 too?
No, or yes, Salvation was PG-13, and then because it was filmed R, but they reduced it to PG-13. I remember that. But Genesis just felt like it was deliberately kind of bloodless, and I didn't mind. I think the tone was more accessible, and like I said, I've watched Genesis a handful of times, and I still, knowing what I'm getting into, I like watching it, and I like it better than Dark Fate, because I think Dark Fate, the couple of times I've watched it, since I saw it in theaters, I've just felt that it was just unpleasant. Like it was just kind of had like an angry tone to it. Does that make sense? Like it just felt like...
Yeah, it does. And I do pick up on the narrative type, the switch, like what you were talking about, how, we're going to make this woman, she's going to be the savior. And
then when I listen to the director talk about, basically, this is, the future is female, we want strong women, and it's kind of like, dude, just shut up, man. It's like, you're ruining what little bit of this movie I could have liked. It's like that I could have liked it beyond just the hollow, Anyway, okay, so that's my Arnold Dark Fate thing. I just keep getting into the repeat tangents because it gets me a little riled sometimes.
It gets me riled up. I can feel my blood pressure going up, but maybe that's the Sudafed too.
Yeah. Someone mentioned Raw Deal earlier. Did you like?
Yeah.
Did you like that one?
Okay, so I watched it multiple times back in the day because I was just obsessed with Arnold back then. Like, because it came out, I was a teenager. I think it was like late 80s, right?
85, I believe.
Something. I was a teenager and I was just like obsessed, all things Arnold. So I watched it many, many times, but I remember I wasn't super crazy about it, but upon rewatching it now, it's not that bad. It's not as actiony as I think I came to expect of Arnold's movies, but that's because it's not really an action film.
Yeah, he tried to do dramatic turns like the revenge, this was before the full-on... I love Commando, because that one is like the perfect, no lean, and like there's no narrative fat on the film, and it's just all about him just killing these bad guys, making great one-liners while he does it, and that's it. I mean, it's just really, it's a showman's film, and it's brain dead. Seriously, it's a dumb fucking movie. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. It is. No, it is.
But it is so satisfactory to watch. I mean, that line where he's sitting there, just the one classic one-liners, like that one guy, when he's holding him over the cliff, when he's like, "Hey, Sully, remember when I said I'd kill you last?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, you did. I lied." And he drops him off, and you're just like, that's how I want to kill people when I kill them in life. I want to say things like that. Like,
and then he says to the girl when he walks back to the car, she's like, "What happened to so-and-so?" He's like, "I let him go."
Let him go. And then don't bother my friend. He's dead tired, just stuff like that, that you can't help but like, just be like, okay, I get the tone. This is fun. And it's so weird to me seeing Alyssa Milano, like 5, 6, 7 years old or whatever, because ever since I've been coherent, she was always like a teenager, almost adult, so it's just so weird to see that. But yeah, Commando was just fun.
I remember her from when she was on Who's the Boss.
Yeah. Well, in hindsight now, and I've seen her on that now, and she apparently she had her own little fitness videos and stuff as a teenager. I think Jennifer Love Hewitt did with her too.
Oh my goodness.
It was weird.
What do you think about okay, so we haven't touched much on his comedic films.
Oh yeah,
but probably one of his best performing comedic films would be, I guess, I don't know, Twins or Kindergarten Cop.
I think Kindergarten Cop's going to be the fan favorite. I mean, that's the one that
probably
even Arnold fanatics tend to gravitate to. It's got so many good lines in there, stuff you weren't expecting, and I saw one of the comments earlier when it says, "Who is a daddy and what does he do?" And that was a Kindergarten Cop line, and it was like, I've told you I've been to the school where they filmed Kindergarten Cop, and all through Astoria, Oregon, which also they filmed Goonies and Free Willy and stuff like that.
Okay. Sorry, it's
a sign from God.
I don't know what the heck. Okay, but I think you can still see me okay. Don't wake up. Yeah, he's dead tired.
He's dead tired. But yeah, no, I love Kindergarten Cop, to be honest. I think that one is hilarious. I saw it as a kid, and I remember my grandma had the VHS. I'd never even heard of it. I didn't have a clue it even existed. I was like 5, and or 6 or something like that. And I saw that she had it, and I just saw Arnold. And since I couldn't really watch his movies since they were rated R, I wanted to watch that. And I remember I thought it was the funniest thing in the world when they said, like, "Who are you?" And he goes, "I'm the potty pooper."
I'm potty pooper, yeah.
And I just thought it was just funny because he said poop, but it was just like,
yeah. Yeah, I was watching that a few months ago. I was rewatching it, and that scene was pretty funny. It even made my husband laugh when he saw it, because he was actually paying attention at the time.
Yeah, I like that one. And it's, and again, I think maybe it's just the Pacific Northwest connection for me makes it kind of adds an element to it to where you're kind of like proud of it, because it's like one of those movies they filmed in places around you know what I mean?
Yeah. I wish I'd seen that on the big screen, but I didn't. Yeah,
that would have been cool.
That would have been. I remember when Twins was coming out. I remember hearing about it, like it was, I think it had either come out around that time or there had been an announcement about it. And I was excited because it was Arnold, but honestly, and Twins is a lot of people really like Twins, but I was never really super, super crazy about it. Maybe it's just because it's comedy. So even though it's Arnold, and I don't know, it doesn't, I like when you take comedy and you mix it with something else like action, which is why I like Kindergarten Cop so much, or why I really liked True Lies so much, because there's a lot of comedy in True Lies, but also some really cool action scenes. The Twins, have you heard that they're supposed to come out now with triplets, and instead of Eddie Murphy being cast, which he'd been talked about for a long time, it's Tracy Morgan?
I heard it was Eddie Murphy originally, and I think maybe Eddie, I know Eddie's kind of been a little soft late. Like he's kind of, like Adam Sandler refers to himself as being slow now in comedy because they haven't been doing it for so long,
Oh, yeah.
I could picture it, but I think Eddie Murphy could get himself back into shape.
I think he could. I mean, I'll probably see it just because, but again, I don't know. I'm not really super. I would rather see another True Lies movie.
Yeah, that would have been fun. Did you ever hear of a movie called The Kid and I?
Yes, but I never watched it.
Did you see it? Okay.
No, I did not.
Okay, well, I have
it. It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor.
Tumor.
Well, what was the premise of that? Because I forgot.
The Kid and I it was kind of based on it was based on a real thing where this billionaire guy, his kid has cerebral palsy, and he always dreamed of wanting to be an action star and stuff. And the billionaire just went and hired Tom Arnold and got Stallone. Got Schwarzenegger. Yeah, I got Schwarzenegger's approval because he even has a cameo in the movie, and Linda Hamilton has a role in it as Tom Arnold's ex-wife. And so there's a lot of little connections behind the scenes there. But the kid, he basically pays Tom Arnold to star in a shot-for-shot, basically remake of True Lies, because that's what the kid's favorite movie was.
Oh my gosh!
And it's a weird comedy, but there's a lot of like famous people you will see in just little roles, like Hollywood people.
Cameos,
and I know Shannon Elizabeth has a role. I don't know if you know who she is, but she she's American Pie. Maybe it's just young males of my age frame know who she is because she was very, But
her face looks a little familiar. But no, I haven't seen that.
You might actually like it in that sense.
Wasn't he governor at the time?
He was, and that's how he was able to do a little cameo on that. Well, that was one of the few roles he did of anything when he was in his governorship. So,
when did he do Expendables?
2010.
Was he out of office?
No, he said he was still. I was watching Escape Plan today, and I watched the special features, and he was talking about that, how him and Stallone were able to get him on one of his quote days off on a Saturday for 4 hours to film all. He said he got all his shots done in 4 hours.
Because I thought he was still in office at the time, but I
because that was an issue, because Stallone wanted him to be in the Expendables, but he said, well, I can't because I'm in office, and if I'm he goes, they'll just crucify me if I'm off making a movie while I'm in the governorship. And he goes, so I can't do that. And he goes, but supposedly on Saturdays and Sundays, governors are not supposed to work, and wink, wink, it's like, how do you turn off a politician? But so he said he was able to go on a Saturday and film 4 hours in the little church in California and whatever. And so, and he goes, and he's kind of tongue in cheek about it. He was like, yeah, they got their money's worth because they used literally every frame we shot. They just milked that scene to death. And, but, I
remember seeing that. He had a small role in there. Now his film, well, then he also did the Expendables 2. He was out of office at that point, but I remember, but he's not like the main star in the Expendables. So I remember when The Last Stand came out, that was like his first movie out of governorship, and I did not go see that at the on the big screen. I wish I had, but that's actually a really good film.
It's okay. I saw it twice on the big screen, one for you, one for me. So don't worry. It's I really liked The Last Stand. I thought it was still a pretty straight-faced action movie, but it had a lot of levity in it. So while there's some scenes were really like gruesomely gory, like some of the end shootout scenes
pretty violent,
were like, that was pretty gross. But then there was a lot of, like, Johnny Knoxville had good humor in there, and I love the scene when Arnold runs into the diner and, like, there's all the old staples of the diner, the guys who seem to be there every time the place opens, who never leave. And he's like, you guys have to go, whatever he said, you have to get out. And he goes, why? He goes, these people are coming, they're going to kill everybody, whatever. And he goes, I just ordered a triple cheese egg omelet with a side of bacon. Do I look like I fear death? And you're just like, it's like, and of course, I paraphrase that. I might have butchered it, but I remember that scene just cracked me up. I like that. I like that kind of fun where Arnold can still do, like, a little bit of acting, like a little heaviness in there, a good action, drama, some violence, and then there's humor laced throughout, and it just makes for a pleasant film, And I saw The Last Stand. I think I told you that when there was a theater that was closing, and I went. I think it was January 31st. I remember the day, on a Thursday. See the last showing at the last theater, The Last Stand. I thought there was something poetic about that, but so that's just,
it is. I forgot he was in the rundown, Chris. Completely
he did.
Forgot about that part.
Yep, he did. He had a cameo. Walked past The Rock as he goes in, and The Rock goes and beats up a bunch of XFL players. If you remember XFL.
Yeah, I do remember XFL. Okay, so what else? Sabotage. I remember I liked it when I first saw it, but it was like, it was so raw and so heavy, and so just, it felt like really over the top with the expletives and the violence and so I was like, it's okay. And then I rewatched it not long ago, and the storyline itself is actually not that bad. It's still really raw. It still comes across as really raw and over the top with the way they're acting. I don't know if I felt like the girl in there, and I had seen her in The Killing. It was a show she was in. I don't know. I guess it's just the way her character was supposed to be, but she just felt so over the top and ridiculous in a lot of ways. The way she played her part. I don't know if you got that vibe or not. But it's like she was trying too hard to be really rude and crude and terrible.
I thought the cast was probably one of the best casts he'd had in a movie. I mean, that he had headed. I thought the cast was really solid. Like, and even just little roles, like everyone in his crew.
Sam Worthington was in there.
and he was still
in there.
Kind of hot at that moment. His star was fading, so that's probably how they were. And Terrence Howard.
Yeah, that's right. I had forgotten several of the cast members. I just remember the girl and I remember Arnold.
But that movie was actually, I thought it was a good movie, and I saw it in theaters, and I thought it was actually pretty good, and I was disappointed that it made so little money, because I know The Last Stand did pretty bad in theaters. It didn't do horrible, but it really was a disappointment. And then I remember so you're kind of like, so his comeback is kind of hinged on this second film coming out, and then Sabotage did even worse than The Last Stand. And I thought it was like a better made film, not as enjoyable, but I thought it was a better made film. And you can tell they put effort into it because David Ayer, who was a director, he had just done like End of Watch, which, if you remember that one with Jake Gyllenhaal, and that was that was a pretty good, well-regarded film, made a lot of money. So you could tell they'd put a lot of effort. This was kind of a big push for Arnold again, and it just didn't land, and I was really disappointed.
I think people just aren't into him anymore as far as his movies go.
No, they weren't. And that was what was symbolic of it. They'll take him in supporting roles, like in Expendables, like where he's kind of like a side guy, or Terminator, where it's like, oh yeah, I like Arnold. He'd be cool to be in it, but I'm not going to put a tent pole on him anymore. But Sabotage also, I want to talk about that one for a moment. That was an underseen one, but it was also a thing with Arnold trying to do something, again, very different. Because I don't know if you've seen.
It was different.
Well, it was. No, but like Arnold was actually the villain of the movie. Did you see the alternate endings that were on the Blu-ray?
No, I don't have the Blu-ray.
Okay. So well, I encourage you to invest in it.
So he was a villain because, well, you find out he steals the money, but it was because he wanted to get revenge on what happened to his family.
But that was the change, so the audiences would respond, because test audiences didn't respond to it. Originally, he killed the detective lady he kills her. He takes the money, gets on a boat, and leaves. And one of them, he gets away with it. Another one, she ends up having to kill him. And in the Nice and Tidy version that we got in theaters, he steals the money so that he has an ulterior motive to do something righteous with it. So you don't really judge him on it. You're kind of like, okay, I get what he was doing, which it worked. I like that ending. And I can't say particularly I like the other endings of him as a villain, but I thought that was another. But it was a cool thing. He was trying to branch himself out. And it just, again, it didn't click with it. And so I thought that was really interesting with Sabotage, is, not only that he made a good film, but it was very gritty and kind of down to earth, very violent. But he tried to be a villain in that one. And I think that was a interesting take. Usually they don't let you branch out when you're a guy like Arnold. They do it very slow. He tried his comedy shtick for a while in the 90s, and it had some good results.
Some of them, like Jingle All the Way.
But the studios didn't get the money they wanted out of him. So, they wanted huge hits. They got decent hits and good video sales, but they didn't get the, Terminator 2. Yeah.
Yeah, those days were done. Terry asks a question.
Oh, yeah.
Is there an Arnold movie you wouldn't watch again?
Give me a second. I'm thinking.
Well, I can tell you one.
I think you already said it.
Again. I don't think I'll watch Hercules in New York again. Junior. I saw that once. Never again. That was so dumb. I did not like that movie.
You believe men can't give birth?
No, they can't. That's not a popular thing to say, but no.
I know.
It was just the premise was just, I don't know, it just didn't work. Like I didn't feel like there was, number one, it didn't feel like there was good chemistry between him and what's her name, Emma Thompson, was that her name, Emma Thompson?
I don't.
And just the premise itself just seems so. I was like, what the heck am I even watching?
Yeah.
So I was like, nah, I'm not gonna watch this. So while you're thinking, I'm gonna check some of these comments. Love a lot of scenes in Sabotage. Love how he yells at the cops for being out of shape when he's brought in for questioning.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I love that because
Sorry, go ahead, Derek.
No, that's a good one on internet. If you've been a weightlifting, if you do weightlifting, I'm sure you get it too, and all this stuff where it says how, gym rats win arguments and stuff. And it shows that scene where Arnold's sitting and goes, and look at you don't yell at me. Look at you with your 40% body fat. And you're just like, yep, that's how gym guys are. When you could be talking about cars, you could be talking about, nuclear dynamics. You get to a point, you go, look at you, you fat fuck. And that's basically. I'm sorry, it's crude, but it's true.
I wasn't crazy about Hercules. The dubbing on that was so bad, and it was just so terrible. So probably I wouldn't see Hercules again. I only watched it because it was Arnold.
Oh yeah. Did you ever see Stay Hungry?
I did. I saw that once, and he was definitely a different. He wasn't the main star in there.
No,
he wasn't. Sally Field and Jeff Bridges, I believe. I wasn't crazy about that movie, but that was kind of one of the things that was sort of his entry into, or like I think this came after Hercules. And
yeah, it did.
I think it was sort of like his entry. It kind of helped pave the way a little bit to other types of roles. Like I think this helped him more than Hercules did. Killing Gunther. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I have the Blu-ray. I'm looking at it right now.
I've seen it once, and it was one of those things I just watched while I was working, and I thought it was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, I thought Arnold did good with comedy. Like it was like, okay, he's branching. He's shown that he can.
Man, but he was still funny.
And he really it was clever how you can tell they really had to milk. It was a low budget production that was lucky to even get him to sign on. So they had a limited number of days to actually shoot with him. So if you're paying too much. No, but when he pops up at the end, some of the stuff was just so ridiculously absurd, and you can tell he's in on the joke. And it clicked. It was funny. I love when he supposedly seduced the guy in the dress, and at the end, when when they're showing the flashbacks, it looks nothing. There's and you're just as the audience, you just believe, yep, that was Arnold in the dress, and you're just like,
I need to rewatch that movie and actually pay more attention to it this time. But if you're watching it just because of Arnold and you want to see him, he's not in there a whole lot. It's not really, I mean, the movie is titled after his character, but he's not really a main force.
But I think average people, even if they're watching it for Arnold, because it does give a good build up to finally seeing him, and
I thought the payoff was worth it.
Yeah, it was, and it's like 80 minutes long. It's really not, and it's not a bad 80 minutes. It's actually got a bunch of Saturday Night Live alumni, so it's.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Well, newer stuff. I learned. I don't watch Saturday Night Live anymore, but I learned apparently they were on it at some point. So
Okay.
To be honest, I don't know if there's any Arnold movie I couldn't watch again. I'm pretty easy about. I just like the guy. And I know the Hercules, and I'd probably be the thing. If I had to kick one out, it'd probably be Hercules Goes Bananas or In New York, whatever you want to call it.
I can watch almost anything Arnold, but I definitely do have my favorites. And so obviously there will always be Terminator 2, True Lies. I love that movie. It was
hilarious.
Arturo watched it for the first time in preparation for the 1994 movie discussion. And he was saying how he's like, man, I did not realize how funny this movie was actually going to be. Like, he thought it was going to be all serious, and it was really funny. And he got really tickled at a lot of the scenes. It was, I thought the chemistry with Tom Arnold and Arnold was pretty good in there. It was pretty funny. And Jamie Lee Curtis it's like, James Cameron, why can't you make more movies like that?
That was fun. I love Tom Arnold, when he's like, oh, my wife's cheating on me. Oh yeah, congratulations or whatever. Welcome to the club or whatever he said. And he's like, my wife, she divorced me. And that sick bitch took the ice cube trays out of the freezer. You're just like, that's right. And then I love when the terrorist is shooting at Tom Arnold, and he's a kind of an overweight guy, and his belly and his side are hanging on both sides of the pole that he's hiding behind, and the vulture's hitting the pole. It's like,
it was so funny. Oh, that movie is so much fun. Do you remember him in The Villain? I saw that once.
I didn't.
Kirk Douglas in that? Sorry, go ahead. You were saying something about the True Lies and how they.
I loved also the scene with Bill Paxton. Remember in the car salesman?
The different scenes. There were multiple scenes with him.
I love when he's hallucinating it. When
he envisions that he bashes his face in.
Well, because he's saying this absolutely disgusting stuff about Jamie Lee Curtis. And you're just like,
I know. And the look on Arnold's face.
And where he just hits him out of nowhere, just pop right in the face, and he's just out, with the backhand, and then
what the heck?
Yeah, that movie was solid. And it showed that that's the kind of comedy I think the comedic line that Arnold can really excel at is where it's not full bore comedy like you'd say a Junior or Twins or whatever, but when it's comedy is a secondary factor, I think he's capable of doing it well. I think he can do it.
Yeah, he can be pretty funny. I'm going to put a link up to in the chat to The Villain. It was a 1979 film. It did have Kirk Douglas in it and Anne Margaret. And the only reason I watched it was because of Arnold. I don't remember anything about it.
That's the Western, right?
Yes, it was a Western.
Okay, because I was just thinking of that, and honestly, I've never seen that one.
Yeah, the bike and the horse chase. Yeah. That scene with the bike and the horse, Arnold talks in his book about that, where he's up on the roof and he's going to try to make the horse jump to the pole on the other building. Do you remember that scene in True Lies?
Oh yeah. The hotels.
Sorry, I know I shifted gears from the villain to this. He was talking about how something wonky. I think I mentioned this in one of the live streams. Something wonky happened with that scene, and he could have been killed if it weren't for this guy that stepped in and was able to like stop the horse from whatever was going on. He describes it in detail. It's actually quite scary. But in True Lies was when he got his first hint of something wrong with his heart. He said some scene. Yeah, that was the first clue that something was going on. And I didn't realize that. So really cool little background info sort of stuff that he talks about in his book. You should definitely check it out. Yes, Terry, I did watch Maggie.
Oh, that was a good one.
That was very sad, but I thought he did a really good job in that movie.
That was part of his late 2000s during the end. That was after his comeback was kind of.
It was, what year was
2016, 15, 16.
Okay.
But
what is it, Arturo?
Am I able to?
What?
I was just gonna ask. Since the medicine makes you feel like you have a temperature.
Yeah.
And is it okay to take a shower?
Yes, it's fine because you don't really have one.
I remember, from what happened to Dad.
No, you're fine. Sorry, a medical question here. I know Arturo and I both are dealing with some stuff in our sinuses. So
you're dealing with it now?
Well, I took some Sudafed. Sorry, I'm getting into all this stuff. It has nothing to do with Arnold.
Did I contaminate you?
Okay. Sorry. So getting back to Maggie, if you haven't seen it, it's definitely a different sort of twist on the whole zombie thing, but it's done in such a way that just makes it feel so organic and really sad. And it's, to me, I think it's like a metaphor for a parent who has a child with a terminal illness, and the grief, the sorrow, the anxiety that comes with that. And I felt like it was pretty well. It's just not your typical zombie movie. And it's also not your typical Arnold movie. So don't go into it expecting something like that. But I thought he did a really good job. And I felt like it was quite touching. I've seen it a couple times.
I really liked, and when you were talking about that with the terminal illness, I thought that was, I liked how Arnold, to me, like stood up when you talk about, obviously he's known for his physicality and being an image of strength. You look at him and he's a strong guy, but I liked that it felt more, he didn't really use any of that. I felt like he stood up in that against a bunch of societal things. Like you saw his own wife left. Remember that when wanted to
and how they
when
were
Maggie was sick and all the people you got to kill her, you got to get rid of, just do this stuff, and he was not going to let that happen, and he stood up against all that. And I thought that was really a strong character moment. When people talk about strength and character, I thought that was good, like what a parent of good character would do.
Right.
I saw that, like how people, you can hear allegories of people who were old stories of people who in the HIV days, when that was early, when parents might have abandoned children, or say children with mental illness or terminal illness of some sort, these parents that kind of just back off or send them away, and you saw him not do that. Like he stood up, he stood with him, knowing that he was going to pay price for it too, potentially. And I just thought it was a very good, I thought it was touching. I thought I liked it a lot. It was
very touching. And I remember, and I think just because of, so there was a movie that I was trying to remember, that certain movies like that, they hit me pretty hard because of the parallels that are made with real life type of situations, even though they're covering it like it's sort of encapsulated in this, supernatural type zombie sort of thing, but you don't look at it as a zombie film. And that scene where she comes down, and I just remember, that final scene when she comes down and he's in the chair and he's sleeping, and I was like, what the heck is going to happen? This is awful. Oh, it reminds me, what I was going to say is, it reminds me of how I felt when I watched the movie The Clove Hitch Killer, which is about this kid who suspects his father is a serial killer. And just the emotional impact of something like that, because of that close. I don't know. That was just, to me, that movie really affected me. Maggie and the Clove Hitch Killer one, just because of the subject matter and,
Yeah.
I don't know. Just definitely a different role for him, for sure, Chris. Pretty sad.
I thought that it was good, like coming from a point of that was I guess I was trying to say with Arnold doing a different role like that was, when you have I guess I don't know, parental abandonment, if people have ever gone through that kind of stuff, how traumatic that can be, or how terrible, and you kind of look at an Arnold person and would think, oh, why, that's what a good parent would do. And I thought that was very well portrayed in that, because you saw that, just again, all the societal push for him to basically abandon his daughter, leave her to her fate, to leave her be alone, just kind of the worst thing you could do. But that was, for whatever warped reason, that was the societal push, and everyone around him left him. If you're not going to leave her, then we're leaving you by extension. And that's what I saw in it. And it really, I guess it resonated, and it just made it a very honest film to me. I liked it. I loved seeing him do that. And he didn't use any of his muscle for the movie. You know what I mean? He used his character. And
there was that one scene in the, what was it, a gas station or something at the very, very beginning. He had picked her up and he was bringing her home, and they stopped, and there was like a zombie in there. But this really was not like an action movie
or even a horror film, really. It was
absolutely
disease.
not. Yes, exactly. That's what it was. It was just so freaking sad. Okay, I was looking at stuff that he's got coming out. He's got something called Kung Fury 2. What?
Kung Fury?
I never saw the first. I know
it was the first one. Yeah.
It's a comedy film directed by David Sandberg. And it's a sequel to a 2015 featurette called Kung Fury. Michael Fassbender, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay, I don't know about that.
Well,
but
following Maggie, not to derail on where you were heading there, did you guys ever? He did another serious one that was different called Aftermath.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I saw that. I did see that. I think we've talked a little bit about that here and there. I
forgot if you had or not.
I think it was based on like a true story or something like that. And I didn't am I right about that, or am I
I could have been, but it doesn't seem like anything too far-fetched from reality.
Well, I remember when I saw it, I watched it because obviously Arnold, right?
I remember them saying it was based on a true story, but I don't know how much of it was grounded in reality.
People surrounding the 2002 mid-air collision of a passenger airline with a cargo jet. So that might be the only thing it has in common with it. But I wasn't crazy about it. I mean, I thought as far as him playing in a dramatic role, I thought he did great. But just the story itself, I wasn't crazy about. I remember I was like, what? It just, I don't know. That one didn't click with me, but he was good in it, in my opinion.
I liked it. I felt a lot of again, it's probably not a very particular pleasant. It's like two dark films he did in a row, Maggie and Aftermath. Dark. And I did like if you've ever dealt with insurance companies on like compensation or loss or anything like that, and then you see, I thought they embodied it well, the callousness, the cold-hearted parts of your body, or people, a whole person you love or whatever, they're worth a financial figure, a dollar amount. And to see in that scene where he's dealing with the lawyers and they're just tell them this is what they're worth and what their projected worth is for what their life is. So this is all we have to offer you. And just like the kind of the rage you would feel hearing that from those kind of people, and I thought that was a good scene. And when he tried to show him the picture and say, well, I want someone to apologize and stuff, and show him pictures, and they just were like, okay, what about it? They would not concede that they were wrong. They were just offering settlement. And I don't know, to me, I thought it was a good scene. And I thought Arnold played it really well, because you could sense, again, his rage, his hurt, his sorrow, but he didn't have an ability to resort to what people would come to expect. Again, being strong man, muscle man, just throw the table over and rip these guys their faces right off. He felt very feeble almost, you know what I mean? Like he had nothing to do, nothing he could do. And then obviously he sought revenge later on in the film, which and then it kind of,
that was where it felt like it went kind of, I don't know. off the rails.
But like I understood I understood how he got to that point. Like I did in as much and I think that's what a good drama film would do, or a story would have. I like when you have those points where you can see things that are not necessarily on paper that you would say, oh no, we would never do those are terrible. But then you'd see them actually played out in a context of real life, I guess, or in the story. And then you almost have understanding for why people would do things like that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's very conflicting because you know that, well, probably shouldn't have done that. But I also, I know it's wrong, but I can't look at him and say, and tell him he's wrong. You know what I mean? Like I understand why you did so I thought that was kind of an interesting little footnote he did, because his comeback had kind of didn't work out. So he went back to trying new formulas, and he did those 2 dark films in a row that I thought for dramatic purposes, I liked. I thought they gave Arnold a chance to try new things, and I liked doing that. And he showed he was capable. And so it added
like Collateral Damage kind of showed us a little bit that he had some dramatic chops in him, and
End of Days too. That whole, he had that scene where where he cried on camera for the first time, I think, and you're like, oh,
okay, didn't realize that. I guess I forgot.
Do you remember that scene? That was a big.
I forgot about that.
Oh no, yeah. So I know it changes your whole image of seeing men crying on camera. Now he's oh god, I like this guy. Oh no, I'm just kidding. But End of Days.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No.
I was just wanting to highlight this question. I
had no legs.
I didn't know they were saying this. Had you heard anything like that?
I've heard a lot of critiques now, like in general, like about, for one, he's saying, I think, what was it? One of the articles I read in line, it always stuck with me. I think it was, I don't know if it was Flex or Muscle and Fitness or whatever, but someone referred to Arnold as the Mr. Olympia with the worst abs. And I was like, oh, I didn't, I mean, who knows? And that stuck with me. And I've also heard the one that his legs were not particularly high quality. And,
okay. Well,
and I mean, I'm looking at it, then I'm thinking, well, was it like not high quality or not good or remarkable back in what, 1969, 70? You know what I mean? Or are we talking, then was it not good? Or are we talking nowadays where obviously you could, a guy like Arnold would never even place on stage. He wouldn't even be a competitor today. But at the time,
he actually looks, even though he would actually look aesthetically the best.
Yeah.
Compared to what the guys look like now. No, they just look like.
Well, I think I don't know. I think a lot of we have equipment now. We have, supplementation. We have understanding of nutrition. We have just so many tools and things that those guys didn't have back then. And that's why they were also so influential, as they were able to. We'd never seen guys look like that before, and so they were these pioneers. And I don't think it's a fault, in my opinion, if his legs do not measure up, hypothetically, to what you would see today, to sit there and point that out, like, oh, well, his legs suck compared to Mr. Olympia 2021. I'm just like, well, why would you even say that? I don't get it. It's like saying, I don't know, it's like when you go and take a modern sports car and race it against, the old Corvettes of the 50s. You're like, well, if we weren't making better cars, I think that would be a very poor reflection of our society in terms of progress, All
right.
So
yeah.
I don't know. I think Arnold looks great, obviously, and he's iconic and stuff. But I don't think it's harmful. It's hurtful to say that today guys are. Look at the 212. Look at the 212 category for Mr. Olympia. That might be more in line with what Arnold would have been around, because that's not the main Mr. Olympia. But
what's the 212?
There's just a smaller category for guys that weigh around 210 or 212 and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because there's so many different. It's not just Mr. Olympia. For one, it's a whole festival. I mean, there's all sorts of things going on. But within the men's and the women's categories, there are like so many subdivision titles. So, I mean, obviously, like I was saying, there's the Mr. Olympia, the definitive king, and in his own, that's where like the best of the best go. And then there's Miss Olympia, but then there's different ones. There's bikini, there's 212, there's classic physique now. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff like that. You know what I mean? So would Arnold place today in the main Mr. Olympia? He wouldn't even be a thought, and that's just being honest. But I don't take that away from what he was and at the time, you know what I mean? Like I look at him just for all the things he was. I don't want to point out all the things he's not.
All right. Yeah.
So,
did
not
you
sure if
hear
any of that
about
made
this?
sense to you, but Legend
It made sense
of
to me.
Conan.
Yeah, had you heard about that? I hadn't heard about that.
I've heard him talk about it for a while, and I've seen online people have done mock-ups, like he's King Conan, where he's got the beard and the crown, and it looks really cool. And I would love to see that. To be honest, that would be awesome.
I think that's something that could be done right.
Yeah, and I think Arnold would be more than game for it at this point. You know, he would love to revisit that.
The Legend of Conan. What? Well, I'm seeing here it's something dated 2016. That hasn't happened. Terry, where did you see this? Because I'm really curious. I want to know more. I would definitely go watch this if it was going to be made, because it just feels like it would be fitting. Like maybe he'd be dealing with a rebellious son or something like that. I don't know. And the son's going to usurp him, and maybe the son kills him. I don't know. It just feels like it's something that they could do right. And I wish that I wish that they would actually try it, but I'm not seeing anything about it.
It could be one of those movies that's in production history. You know, it's going to be made any day now for the next decade. You know, and
they've been talking about King Conan forever.
Right.
So, I mean, and the stuff that I'm looking at about it, it's like on IMDb. But it's not. I'm not seeing anything is actually happening. So, don't know. Yeah, I agree, Terry. I don't think they look good today, personally. I think they look... it looks unhealthy, for one thing, and it just doesn't even look aesthetically natural. Like Arnold and Franco and Lou Ferrigno, and Dave Draper or whatever, those guys from back in the day, they were big, but they looked like a human body. The guys today, to me, they just... I'm not a fan of that. Yeah, 70s physiques are like Greek statues. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
I love Frank Zane from the 80s. He looked, for a smaller guy, comparatively, I thought he was the perfect balance. Like I like his physique, and he's training a couple guys I think that are Olympia contenders now. But he really had a revered physique before they became like mass monsters, as they call them, or whatever, you know. And
mass monsters, that's a good
one. But I always liked... I don't know, like when I would look at women, I like the muscle on women too. But like I liked like Nicole Wilkins. You ever heard of her?
No, I have not. What year? What decade? Like was she in?
Mid 2010s into the mid.
Oh, okay, so recent.
I got to see her on stage a couple of times. She looked, and I thought she looked very muscular but feminine still. You know, like I guess you could say Corey Everson type. You know what I mean? Just where it still looks very good. You know, and it doesn't look like... I don't know, where it doesn't look unnatural per se, even though obviously they're still a part of nature. So I guess, but
I know what you mean. I'm sitting here also trying to look up stuff about King. Now there is an IMDb entry for it, but that doesn't mean a lot. To be honest, because a lot of things end up on IMDb that never happen.
And then they disappear, or they get yeah.
Yeah, so...
What about, well, technically we did get a third Conan, Red Sonja.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I saw that movie once, only because Arnold.
Well, that was written as a third Conan film, and then they... legal things, whatever, they just redid it to Red Sonja and changed his character name and made him kind of a side character, and then he was out of his contract, or however that worked.
Definitely a side character. I remember that. Because it was
maybe, and that's maybe people started thinking he was short because he stood next to Brigitte Nielsen too long.
She's really tall.
Oh, she's well. Look at her, Stallone standing next to her. He's just like, hey, look at the trophy I grabbed here.
I know, right?
She's like the female Dolph Lundgren, you know. So
she's very, very tall.
Yeah, she was supposed to be She-Hulk, you know.
I could see her as She-Hulk.
She even did. They did makeup. Canon, I believe it was.
Really?
They dressed her up. I mean, they tried to sell it and everything. And I know Corey Everson actually met with her and Oliver Stone met for She-Hulk as well.
That would be cool. Corey, I could see Corey doing that as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. There was a video of Arnold bicep curling a lot of weight, and people says he used fake weights. Why would the 7-time Mr. Olympia use fake weights? I really doubt he was using fake weights. I mean, I'm sure he can't lift like he could back then, but I'm sure he's probably still pretty strong.
Have you watched him train? Like when he's at Gold's Gym now, he'll still post videos doing exercises at there, and he uses a lot of machine weight stuff now, and he doesn't lift a whole ton, but I noticed that he does extensively high repetition, which I know that's one of the staples when you want to stimulate muscle growth. Is, believe it or not, it's not just lifting heavy weight; it's constant tension and so forth. But you see that he's doing it very. And to me, it's like this guy knows what he's doing, and he doesn't have an ego about, oh, I got to put, max weights on this machine. He just, okay, and I'll do 30, 40 sets. I don't care. I'm just fatiguing and just getting a pump, moving on to the next set. And he'll just keep rotating sets. And it's like, to me, those are guys, you see that with the older guys who kind of know it. It's like a young ego thing where the young guy wants to lift the most weight he possibly can and do horrible form, get half a rep in, and then, you know what I mean? I'm sure you've seen that stuff. Maybe not with the female stuff. I guess it's not, maybe that's a guy thing, but.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably is. The T-bar row is just when you're just pulling down that bar, right?
No, T-bar's on the floor. You're lifting.
Oh, it's on the floor. Okay. All right.
But the lat pull down was another one that Arnold. Do you know the lat pull down? You know who engineered that? Jack LaLanne.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was integral in that thing, and that's one of those gym things that we're going to have forever now. It was just historic.
When I think of the lat pull down, I think of the time that I think I was up in Boston visiting my brother when he lived there at the time, and we went to the gym, and I was doing a lat pull down, and I can't remember how much I had put on there. It wasn't like 20 or 30 pounds. It was on up there, and I could do it. But the problem is when I was performing it, something funky happened with my head, and I got this most intense, awful pain. I guess I was just maybe holding my breath or straining too hard, even though it didn't feel hard at the time, but I guess I was straining too hard, or maybe I was tightening my muscles too much or something. And I got the most awful headache pain. And now sometimes it will still happen if I do anything where like maybe my breath gets a little wonky and it involves some sort of effort or strain. We were working on my office, and I was up on the ladder, leaning over, nailing a rafter in, and just the position, and everybody else was like holding the beam up with a rope, getting it in place so I could hammer. But the effort and the positioning, and it happened again. It was terrible. So I was like, that's scary. Oh, speaking of, this was an article. This is an article I cut out from the news.
Showing it's. Well, fuck you too, okay? Gosh.
That's right. He was 59 when they wrote this.
Oh, man.
Okay, I know.
Senior citizen, and it's like, oh, God forbid he shows signs of aging. Gosh.
Yeah, he could probably beat your butt on the exercise mat.
But you see, I don't get that, man. It's like I was saying earlier in the thing, he is such a motivational force, such a positive guy when you hear him talk. Like, I don't hear a lot of negativity out of him. I know he's got critiqued a lot lately in recent headlines, but I know that generally he's very positive, and he just was like, oh, that's what you're worth. Okay, let's go talk about how we want to hit that goal. You know what I mean? He seems like this guy who, again, you hear him talk and you want to be a better person. Like, he just makes you feel golden. He
just has so much energy and inspiration and motivation, and he just seems like he absolutely loves life. And this little smile he gets on his face when he's talking to the camera, and I don't know.
But what kind of angry little bitter Grinch wants to sit there and kick that guy? You know what I mean?
Somebody who. Some people get a thrill out of criticizing other people that maybe used to be up here and now they're not up here, and so it makes them feel better about themselves, I guess. I don't know what the heck.
They do that. You can see that with celebrities. They love to kick them when they're down. You know what I mean? It's like they get a glee out of it. Like, anyways, that was just kind of my rhetorical comment. I was just like, what kind of person writes an article like just, oh, his body's looking really bad these days.
This actually took up space in a newspaper. Like,
yeah. and people ask why we get questionable thoughts about the integrity of the media. You know what I mean? You're like,
media
well,
has no integrity as far as I'm concerned. There's so
done
much.
for.
Yeah.
But did you? I think we skipped over. There was a period I thought we want to talk about with some of Arnold's films, like in the, post Last Action Hero.
Let me go in the, back in the 90s, like
when his star was getting its first little signs of fading, like where Last Action Hero was supposed to be was intended to be a big hit.
That ended up being kind of like a flop.
Yeah, and it didn't. I mean, they've made money on it by now, but at the time they had incredibly high expectations for it, and it didn't hit. And and then so after that, I know Jim Cameron was saying how he could tell Arnold was really kind of hurt about that, like that people had taken him and just revered him and loved him, put him on posters all over the world. He was the hottest thing in the world after Terminator 2. And then within the course of a year, they kind of were spitting him out, and he said and he goes, and Jim was just saying, I could tell that had hurt him and stuff. And so see, he is a human, but he kind of had some decent films. He did Junior after that in 94, but he got back to his action roots, if you remember, with Eraser.
Yeah, True Lies and Junior came out the same year, and then Eraser, came out after that. I liked Eraser, actually. I liked that he had transitioned
back into a solid action movie.
That's the formula that works well with him.
Because I thought Eraser was actually really good, and
I did too. I enjoyed it a lot.
And it didn't make as much money, but it was just indicative that people were, but all the action guys were in a down point at that point. Like the mid '90s. Was kind of when
the beefy action guys were kind of
they were moving on from them, and Stallone was having trouble getting a hit. Van Damme, Seagal, they were all kind of fading away pretty quick. And anyways, but Arnold was still holding on there. He did Batman and Robin, which we kind of people kind of either they love it for its campy over the topness, or they kind of groan. Usually you get groans when you mention Batman and Robin, but usually it's not always. I think a lot of people, though, for saying how everyone who says how bad Batman and Robin is, my takeaway is that a lot of people still find a fun in the Arnold's performance, the Mr. Freeze, because I think a lot of people watching it know he wasn't trying to sell it seriously. He was having a good time, and I think that translated, despite all the punny Adam West era one-liners that he got. You know what I mean? I still think that you can watch it in a camp mindset, appreciate the film, or at least Arnold, for just being, it's just, don't take it serious, man. It's the farthest thing from seriousness. So just kind of go for the ride. And
Suzuki says, have you seen Superstars and Their Moms with Arnold showing some of his movie posters to his mom? No, I haven't seen that. Do you have a link? I would love to watch that. It's funny because so I can't remember when it was that I found out that his mother's name is actually the same name as my daughter's. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I like that. Aurelia, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So you got even more ties to the Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, right. Even though I had no idea. But,
right.
Yeah, no, Batman and Robin did. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
Put Batboy on ice. And it's like, oh, okay, well. I don't think he's reading that with a straight face, so I'm not going to take it with a straight face. I'm going to laugh.
Oh my gosh! That movie, yeah.
But then he did End of Days, which was actually pretty cool. That was his first kind of foray into doing something that was kind of horror, big budget horror. And they played on, at the time, if you remember, the dreaded Y2K fiasco. I'm a survivor of Y2K, as are you, I think.
Yes, I am. I remember the fear about that whole thing.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Well, they played on that in the film with the marketing, and they mentioned it in the film and some of the dialogue. But I thought it was actually a good change for him, because he played a really, kind of, first I recalled anyway, playing he was broken, obviously, and he was kind of he was suicidal, and it was not a pleasant, heroic Arnold we were used to seeing, and I liked him. Basically, if we got a person in the world who's going to fight the devil and win, I'm probably going to I would believe Arnold could, if anyone, so.
Well, I remember the first time I saw it, I didn't really like it, but that wasn't, it was mostly because of the way it ended. I don't like to see Arnold's, I didn't like what happened to his character.
Yeah.
But of course it makes complete sense. It's just, it was more like, oh, I don't want to see that happen to him. But it's logical. And just like, let's say the ending of Gladiator, I don't like to see Russell Crowe's character die, but it makes sense, and it would cheapen the story if he did live and have a happily ever after. So when I watch it now, it's not nearly as unenjoyable as it was the first time, for sure.
Plus, I love Gabriel Byrne as the devil.
Yeah.
In that one, and he steals the show in a lot of the scenes he's in, because he's a good actor, and he's just really cocky, and he has some good one-liners about, ranting about Jesus.
Were creepy. Remember the scene when he's like having the threesome with the two women, and this weird thing is going on with their bodies? It was like, that's really gross and creepy. It was something weird.
They're like morphing into each other or whatever.
I was like, ooh, that's
but it didn't gross you out that was mom and daughter sin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was nasty.
That was disgusting, but yeah.
Yeah, that was unsettling for sure.
Well, and then when he was done, I loved how the devil in that movie was like really irredeemably evil. Like he wasn't even really he just, the way he would like destroy his own followers, you know what I mean? Like when was it Udo Kier, the stepfather of Robin Tooney, whatever, when he was done using him, and he just goes, oh, okay, good, and he just turns around and punches a hole like right through his head. You remember that?
Oh no, I don't remember that.
Oh god, it was just like, oh wow, I didn't see that coming, and he just like pull the hand out and just kind of wipe off his, like he's just like kind of like get this blood off me, you know what I mean? But it was just like he was just irredeemably evil, and I thought he did good. And then I liked when he was ranting about Jesus, saying, or God, and saying like how, you ever notice whenever something bad happens, it's God works in mysterious ways and stuff, but he just had a good PR publicist, that's all. And you're just like oh, okay,
that's funny. I think I tried to talk Arturo into watching that for the 99 discussion. That was in 99.
99.
Okay, that's weird. But he wasn't, that went off again.
Speak of the devil.
No, right? He wasn't, I don't know, he wasn't really interested to watch it. I wouldn't have minded rewatching it again with him, but maybe I'll just go ahead and rewatch it by myself at some point.
You should.
I think we've got that. Pretty sure I know I've got that on disc. We might have it on digital, but I don't remember. I'd need to check. But
and then we had Sixth Day after that one, remember?
The Sixth Day. And I used to get those confused because they had such a similar end of days and the Sixth Day. I like the Sixth Day. I mean, it's not his best movie, but I thought it was really fun.
I thought it was actually, I rewatched it last week before. And I actually thought that it was, because I saw it in theaters when I was a kid, when, 2000. And I remember at the time being kind of unimpressed. Like I didn't mind it, but I just thought it was just kind of mediocre. And I think maybe again, I had the expectation that Arnold was going to be a big action star. He's going to do a lot of violent things. He's going to be saving the day. And he really didn't. I mean, he did actiony things, but he believe it or not, he kept his shirt on for pretty much all the movie, and he had a coat on, and he was so it wasn't, again, he was not the mold that we expected, and maybe that's my fault, or maybe as the kid, the story was a little slower, it was a longer movie, but I watched it now, and I actually thought, I'm paying attention to it, I'm like, this is actually a pretty decent film, and Tony Goldwyn was great. I thought Tony Goldwyn did great, and he was slimy, but he was also
he was slimy.
He was basically a politician.
Literally slimy, he was at one point.
Literally with half an ear, and that was gross. Like,
so nasty,
dude,
I know.
And then like that scene when they're like switching clones, and he's like, "You're not gonna wait for me to die," and he just goes, "Would you?" And you're like, "Oh." That was just, but that just showed how cold-hearted these people were, and how like the cloning stuff is. And I thought it made good food for thought on the whole clone issue. Like, notice how when they would talk about the re-pet, it was never like the pet was an actual part of your family. It was always the clone, or they referred to it as an object. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm afraid that's what it would lead to in that sense. But regardless, I thought it was just a decent film, and I think some of the things I predicted kind of came true. Like that, dude, look at that Sim Pal Amy or whatever that little doll was.
Yeah.
That thing was disgustingly gross looking.
It was gross. It was creepy looking too.
It looked like it had a skin disease of some sort, but it was supposed to be your daughter's best friend. And you're like, you're going to tell me little girls would see that thing and think, oh, I want to be best friends with this, as opposed to being like, oh my God, it looks like it looked like that girl, boy, whatever from the movie The Orphan. That's what it reminded me of. And
oh yeah.
And Greta Thunberg, but
yeah, Greta Thunberg did take a little bit like her.
Whoopsie, did I say it out loud?
It's because the pigtails, I think.
And I love how that doll was just so dumb. Like, it would always say, oops, I had a boo-boo. And then after, like, that guy blew its head off and, oops, I had a boo-boo.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, we can see that stuff coming. And the way the self-driving cars that they were using in the movie, it just seemed like there was for a futuristic film, they got a few right, you know, and I liked it. I thought it was actually better than I remembered. So
yeah, I've always enjoyed it. So yeah, it was good to rewatch it again because Arturo watched that one for the 2000 discussion, I think, and he enjoyed it. Did you know this about Arnold's mom giving away his 69 Mr. Universe trophy?
I'd heard something like that before. I honestly, I couldn't remember the specifics, but I remember hearing something like that. Yeah.
Well, how in the world did he get it back? I wonder.
Prostitution. But I'm kidding. I don't know.
I know. That's funny.
He sold mom's Yugo. And then what about, you mentioned earlier, so I'm just going down the line off memory, and correct me if I skip something or whatever, but Collateral Damage. Yeah.
I mentioned that one briefly earlier. I remember that I was looking forward to that one coming out, and then that got postponed because of 9/11.
Yeah.
And I remember not appreciating that very much. I thought that was kind
of silly. Of movies got shifted after, and people forget that. And a lot of movies, if you can just look at the box office, a lot of movies that were making #1 throughout the year were making like $5 million. Like, no one was going to movies, and so they pulled like everything that wasn't really anything that they.
The reason that one also got shifted is because it was about terrorism.
Right, that too.
So, and then of course, you know, in Spider-Man, there was a scene in the 2002 Spider-Man where he had caught a helicopter in a web that he had spun between the two towers, and they removed that. But Collateral Damage, I liked it. I thought it was pretty decent.
I liked that it continued kind of his trend there of where he wasn't being really a muscle-bound serial killer, basically action star. You know what I mean? Where just killing hundreds. Where he seemed a little more dialed back, and I think they tried to make him more down to earth.
Yeah.
Right, and of course they always had to do something. Like in 6th Day, he was still a Air Force war veteran. You know what I mean? Like they still give him some redeeming masculine trait, but it was just kind of like the point. He wasn't what he was before, where he would have no shirt sleeves on, carry, like in The Eraser, where he's firing 2 enormous rocket, those laser guns in each arm. You didn't see stuff like that anymore. He'd become more a little more dialed back, and I like that.
Was more like a suburban dad type character, right.
Right. Like you could call your neighbor's dad to go, take on Iranian terrorists and stop a plane hijacking by Sofia Vergara. And remember, she had a role originally in the film also that they cut out. She was
I completely forgot. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she got, and that was one scene that got removed was, and they've still never surfaced it, but she was a plane hijacker that was going on simultaneously with the ending. And obviously that was not going to fly after 9/11.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
If you and Derek could spend a day with Arnold, what would you do? Where's the nearest Gold's Gym? That's where I'm heading. I want to train with Arnold now.
Yeah.
Seriously, I would want to exercise with him. I would seriously just do anything. Show me what I'm doing wrong here. Help me out, buddy. Talk to me, and
I would get back into lifting weights a little bit if I could spend a day with Arnold. No, I would not. I wouldn't. I would go work out at the gym with him, but I'd probably just like to sit down and talk. Just talk about a bunch of stuff.
Ask him what his favorite movie is.
I would ask him what his favorite movie is. Yeah.
Ask him what he thinks of Terminator: Dark Fate.
Oh, jeez. He's not going to bash it.
No, he'll tell you it's the best movie ever.
Yes,
he can sell anything, and that's what he'd do. So, But
I feel kind of bad for him. I remember when he was going around doing, you know, publicity and everything for the movie for Genesis, and Genesis just didn't do so great at the box office, but he's flying around I don't know, here and there and everywhere to promote the movie, and it was like that particular weekend it was #1 in the world because maybe that was like one of the only movies that was kind of like a big deal at the time. So of course it's going to be #1. But I don't know, just like, oh, I wish the magic was back.
But I think he also had hopes that would be kind of his last, because after Last Stand didn't work the year before, and then Sabotage failed, and then Genesis, I think that he was kind of hoping that would be his final. If this movie does it, I got another chance. I got another shot. We can get it right. And it didn't. And then after that, he made Maggie and Aftermath, not After Earth. God. He made Aftermath. And those were both basically direct-to-video. I think they all went to token like 50 screens somewhere, but they were, for all intents and purposes, direct-to-video.
Yeah, I think it was. What is going on with my light? One of the bulbs goes off and on and off and on. Okay, maybe it just needs to be tightened up or something.
But I think with Arnold, I think the coolest thing.
I like that scene too. Yeah.
Yeah, the 84 scenes were actually pretty good. I love the attention to detail. Like it felt. And I thought the actor that got, I forget, drawing a blank on his name, the guy that got to play the Liquid T-1000 thing in 1984.
I know exactly who he is. He's that Korean actor.
He, in mannerisms and the facial structure, like I saw like Robert Patrick. Like to me, I thought the guy like looked to me like Robert Patrick. I mean, obviously not him, but you know, I thought the movies and a lot of scenes, like was it Emilia Clarke? And when she first pulled up, like from her side shot, when her side, profile of her face, I thought she looked like Sarah Connor, the way they had, like Linda Hamilton. Like,
in the beginning, it was convincing, but then the more the movie went on, the less convincing she became to me.
Because she struck me as being like a pudgy 12-year-old, because it was just like she was like 4'2", and
she was not in the shape that I feel like she should have been. What was that guy's name? I know exactly that actor.
Johnny Courtney.
No, the guy who played the T-1000. His name is Byung-Hun Lee, and he's been in a bunch of different stuff. One of my favorite foreign films he was in, The Good, the Bad, the Weird. He played the bad. Have you seen that?
No, but I remember you shared something with me, or maybe Arturo did or something.
You should watch it. It's really good.
But I remember... when you were saying with Genesis, sorry, that was where I was starting to go. I think Arnold was really excited about that. And but that was a big, I mean, you went to go see it in theaters, right?
I went to see it twice in theaters.
Okay. So you're like the female anomaly, because it came, I think everyone else in your gender went to see Magic Mike XXL that weekend.
I still have never seen any of the Magic Mike movies. Just haven't done.
Oh, they're actually decent films. I can say that. I said that.
I've heard, and maybe I will get around to watching it. It's just, if I had a choice between that and a Terminator movie, I would almost always choose the Terminator movie.
I think the first Magic Mike was actually just solid. And I know a lot of, obviously, women have seen it, but I know a lot of men are like, oh, I want to see a movie. I'm like, dude, shut up, get over it. If women can go see Striptease, if they can go see anything of those movies, and you can see Magic Mike. And besides, they're all, you're watching it for like the performance, like Matthew McConaughey was just slime. I mean, he does great.
Is he slimy in there? I don't know anything about the characters, like what they're supposed to be like or anything.
But he's a snake with a smile. You know what I mean? Like and Channing Tatum did pretty good, but it was actually just a decent movie, and it was enjoyable. And I think a lot of people they make it a woman's movie because it's about male strippers.
Have you seen Gabriel Iglesias' little bit about that?
Yeah, because he was in the movie. Yeah, he was in both of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I didn't know that.
He's fluffy. It is kind of funny because he's obviously all the guys in there are pretty lean, and they're all pretty well muscled. And then you look at Gabriel, and he's like the guy who ate everything they eat, but then didn't work out. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, poor Gabriel, I swear.
Yeah, but he's funny. He's a good movie. And I think I gave you the digital code for one of them.
Yeah, you did, the first one.
And you still haven't watched. Oh my gosh, are you?
I know.
Are you alive? Are you okay? I'm just kidding.
No, it's been a rough few months. I tell you.
I know. But that was I think Genesis also, because it came out against that one, and I believe Ted 2 came out the same weekend. All three of them. So it was a pretty. Really? You had 3 sequels that were all pretty anticipated at the time, and Yeah, it just got shoot up, and so we never got a follow up. And I feel kind of bad that, and don't forget, Arnold had that little brief kind of kind of cameo in Salvation. Because remember they scanned his face and
I remember that.
That was a big to do at the time. I remember
because of the stuff what they had to use to put his face on there. I was impressed with that at the time.
Yeah, at the time it actually looked decent. I mean, now you watch it and it's still obvious it's computerized, but you're looking at it and that was actually at the time was kind of interesting. But we didn't hear much from Arnold that time, so I remember being kind of excited, thinking he'd have a little bit of a role. And
he was governor, wasn't he?
He was still governor when they did that.
Yeah.
But I mean, just like in terms of film, it'd been kind of nothing besides occasional cameo. He'd pop up and,
I remember being excited to watch that part. And then it didn't last very long, but oh well.
No.
Suzuki says, what are some things you love about Terminator 1? Oh my gosh. Do you want to go first?
Oh, me? Yeah, sure. What do I love about Okay. I don't know. It's a great film. I'm thinking, I was like, what do I love? How can I articulate this? I actually, believe it or not, Arnold actually scared me in that one.
Because it was more like a horror. Like Arturo compared that to that felt more like so he compared it to the Alien movies. So like the first Alien was more like a horror, and the second Aliens was more like an action big blockbustery. It's kind of the same way with the Terminator. It does feel very much like a horror movie. Like, what is up with this guy and why is he after this girl? And nothing can stop him. He doesn't stay down. He kills everybody in the police station. And just terrifying, like the sense of dread you have about it's like one of those, like a nightmare you have where you're trying to get it. Well, me, where I'm trying to get away from Michael Myers, and no matter where I go or what I do, I know he's there and he's just going to come after me, and it's never going to stop, ever, until I'm dead. So,
and that's one of the scary things about those is that there's obviously they went to the police and the police can't protect you. So who else is going to protect you? And you don't know if you can stop this thing. And I don't know if it's the right wording for it, but like a kind of a young boy manhood crush on Michael Biehn. I thought he was just so cool and handsome and like strong and he just was just a cool. And then he was also Hicks in Aliens. So I remember thinking like he just seemed like a cool guy to me. Like oh, I would love to be him or at least be friends with him. You know what I mean? And take care. But that's I like that about it. I like Michael Biehn. That was the first real film I saw, and I thought he actually.
I think that was the first one I saw him into.
Well, I'd seen him in other things, but it just didn't click. I didn't notice him until that.
I didn't know. Because obviously he's such an important. What I love about that movie is, well, the writing is good. I like time travel stuff, and this weird sort of vicious circle thing about how the factory that they ended up having their final fight with the Terminator was Cyberdyne.
Yeah,
I wish he had never taken that little clip. It was just like an added couple seconds, just zooming up from after she's in the ambulance to just. Showing that. I really wish they'd kept that in, but also just how she's thrust into this situation and sort of figuring things out as things happen, and she's scared of Reese. She doesn't believe it. She thinks he's crazy, and I don't know. Just there's just something so cool about the soundtrack was cool. The action scenes were cool. Arnold was very convincing. He wasn't initially supposed to be that role. That was supposed to go to O.J. Simpson, as you know. I'm sure anybody who knows anything.
The real life Terminator.
The real life Terminator. I think they wanted Arnold for the role of Kyle Reese. But he kind of had more of it's like he resonated more with the Terminator character, and it was like one of the best casting decisions ever.
And Linda was against it, remember?
She didn't want to be in a movie with him.
She didn't want Arnold in it, and then she also didn't want Robert Patrick.
She didn't?
No, so she makes jokes about how I'm really the worst person to ask on who to cast the movie.
Why did she not want him?
I don't remember the exact things, but I was just watching her talk. I think it was on Arsenio Hall, like from when T2 came, or around the early 90s, and she was talking about that and how she didn't want Arnold and how she didn't want Robert Patrick, and then she was just kind of like, yeah, so I'm the worst person you could ever ask to.
Yeah, definitely
movies,
the worst person. Like with Arnold, it was more because she felt like she was too sophisticated of an actor, like she openly admits that it was stupid. It was stupid thing. But
lady, you just did King Kong Lives or whatever.
Right? Like what? Like I don't know. It was funny. Yeah, I know. But, Uzi 9mm 45 long slide. But I have a shirt with the Terminator that says 45 long slide with laser sighting.
Hey, you can't load the guns in here.
I should have.
Yeah. Yeah. That was Dick Miller, another film legend, who's sadly passed away. But he was the gun salesman.
Yeah, that's right. He died a few years back.
But he's one of those guys that I don't think your average person could ever name him by name. But it's like they could tell you he's
face.
Oh, and they know who he is. Oh yeah, I've seen that guy in a million things. Could you name it? And they just like draw.
No,
he's this great character actor. But yeah, like Terminator. I liked this when you mentioned the soundtrack with. I'm a big music score junkie on that stuff.
Yeah, you are.
Brad Fiedel did so good, man. Like he had that electronic era, and he did the Fright Night soundtrack too. If you didn't know that,
I guess I forgot about that. I like that soundtrack as well.
Really memorable. Has a good theme on that one too. But there's two cool songs in there that I love by Tawny Kane. I don't know if you know who she is, but she sings. She sang the song "Burning in the Third Degree" and Photo Play.
The one that they played in Tech Noir.
In Tech Noir, the cool scene where it's kind of slowed down slowly and it feels almost like it's like surreal, almost dreamlike. That to me, I love that scene. I thought it was tastefully done.
Turns around, it's just choreographed so well. But when you watch it 500 times, you start to see this person dancing over here is also sitting in a booth behind. It's like wait. Okay, that's a mix up. But the way just how James Cameron choreographed that entire sequence, the way the he turns around and then he sees her and then he kind of gets this look, this zoned in look on her. It's just like his whole face changes, even though he's a robot, his face, his expression just completely, it's just like he gets this very predatory, it was creepy.
Yeah, that scene was cool, especially with her, how you said it was choreographed, and it was done purposefully, but the way she just happened to bend over and pick whatever the glass
she
at that same moment.
She knocked it over, and it's the thing, and she's bending over. See, I was just like, this is so
creepy, and it was well
smart.
done, and
yeah.
And I like that song though. I have the CD too, which is very difficult to come by. I found it at a pawn shop for or thrift store for $1, and then I went on eBay and I'm like, oh shoot, this is like $80, crazy.
Dang.
So I'm keeping it. But no. It's kind of cool because Tawny Kane, she is married. Well, she was married to Jonathan Cain from Journey, if you remember the band Journey.
I recognize it. Mm-hmm.
Well, you know the song "Faithfully" by them, by Journey. Okay, well that is written about Tawny Kane who's singing. So it's kind of interesting little connections there. So now when you hear "Faithfully," you should type her in. She's a very pretty woman, and she's done acting and stuff like that. But she. It is kind of cool. And she released a couple CDs back in the 80s, or one got released on a major label, and then I don't know what happened with the rest of her. But so one thing of Terminator peripherally that I like is her music in there. I love her voice. I think she's cool.
What's her name again?
Tawny Kane. TAN.
TAHNEE maybe?
No, not Tawny Katane, but TANE.
Right, yeah, no, I know Tawny Katane, yeah. TANE?
Yeah, and then Kane, CAIN.
Okay, it did pull her up, but it pulled her up with a different last name, Tawny McClure, sometimes credited.
That's her original name. Kane was Jonathan Cain's last name, and then she married.
She looks familiar to me, like I've seen her and stuff before.
She's an actress too. She's acted a lot.
I bet I have seen her things. Okay, so no, I did not know that was her. That's interesting. What do you think about the Terminator as a physical metaphor for time itself? It can't be reasoned with. It can't be bargained with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop ever until you are dead. I did not ever think of it that way.
There you go.
Now that you mention it, that's all I'm going to think about when I see that scene.
Yep, Terminator is now Father Time with his big old white beard walking around with the.
That's a nasty scene, for sure.
Yeah.
I wish that they would go back through and kind of digitally fix some of those practical effects scenes, because I feel like, I don't know, they're very dated. Obviously, they're good, but they're dated. Like when it's showing him in front of the mirror, and it's obviously obvious, a robot. That doesn't work well for me. Stuff like that. But I mean, it was good for its time.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, I don't know. I wasn't alive then, you were, but I don't know how you felt about it when you saw it. Can you even remember what you thought when you first saw it? Did it even flag you as being fake, or was just?
Yeah, I could tell. I could tell right away it was fake.
Right, yeah, but did it flag you as negatively? You understood that's kind of the standard of what, you know what I mean, like a special effects on a film would be at the time.
Yeah.
Because I know it's hard to remember how we felt initially when 30 years later. Obviously, we can make it look almost real.
It wasn't something that was off-putting at the time, as far as like, wow, that looks really bad. But definitely now, when I look back on it, it's like I really wish they would fix that up. Kind of like I wish they would fix up portions of Terminator 2, the scene where he's walking down the hall and they're shooting at him, and then some of the scenes it's just a torso of the Terminator, and you can tell it's a like little things like that. That kind of like when it becomes obvious, it kind of can take you out of the moment a little bit.
Yeah.
But yes, and it's a time travel movie, and it's a perfect fit. It's a good fit.
Time travel.
It hasn't aged you. A part of me wants them to touch it up with CGI. Yeah, I get what you mean about part of you not wanting it to be messed with. But I do appreciate the digital fixes they made in Terminator 2, for sure.
I think I just like them as they are. I don't know that I enjoy fixes. I think of, this is just me personally.
Well, fixes of Goose, I appreciate that. Yeah. Like with his sock arm.
That's fine with me. Part of the film. Hey, and if all the things that are going on, and that's what I'm noticing, maybe I need to engage in the film a little bit.
The only reason I didn't notice it for several years, Derek. It wasn't until but I've watched the hell out of that movie, so
I know.
Of course you're going to start to notice things like that. But
I just think of George Lucas syndrome, where he starts revamping every single thing he does, and you're kind of
it gets.
Where does it stop, George? Yeah. Why don't you just go refilm the whole freaking movie, George?
So what do you think his look in the first or second movie? Do you like his iconic look in the first or second movie?
I'm going to go with part 2. I dressed up. That's just, I picture him standing, like looking out of the Cyberdyne building with the big old Gatling gun thing and his leather jacket. And to me, that's just the most iconic. Like, this is so cool. Like, I think as a kid, a little young boy, I wanted to look just like that and carry around a huge machine gun like that. You know what I mean? And I didn't really pay attention to his until later. And I think it wasn't until I saw a NECA toy of the first Terminator figure that I really paid attention to his outfit, that he actually had on the kind of Hawaiian bright colored shirt underneath his gray jacket. You don't really notice it in the film, but then it's like,
it was one of the shorts he took off one of those
off Brian Thompson.
Okay, that's right. It has the patterns and stuff on it.
And it's very bright, it's got like pinks and neon, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, but I didn't really notice it until. So if that's what we're talking, like in terms of his look, I think he looks scarier with that gray jacket and kind of bulkier than he did in the second one. He just looks.
In the second, he's just so freaking cool. The black jacket, the shades, the hair, the way he walks on the motorcycles, like
the Harley.
I think I like his T2 look definitely more, but also he's a good guy in T2, so I'm like, oh.
Right. I did like when because just him on the motorcycle versus him like driving around in the wood panel Buick station wagon, that he stole. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's not quite the same, I guess. And even if he's more lethal, it's just like But I did like that. I love that part where he just knocks on the door, and the lady with the with the chain lock goes, Sedakana, and he just like punches right through.
And you're something like, I noticed is like, you're like, so I think it was maybe it was in reference to the first movie, or how that, I can't remember if it was James Cameron or Arnold mentioned something about how the Terminator never blinks and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, yes, you did too. You blinked when you were firing the gun and killing that lady. I saw you blink. Blink.
I can picture him blinking like right now. Like,
yeah, he did it, and then he also blinked when he had his glasses on. That same, it was a blink, and that eye was not even supposed to be there anymore. I know. These are the things that happen when you watch the movie so many times. I do wish there were more practical effects as well.
Yes, and that's one thing that I wish. It's almost maddening. I've joked. I don't know if I've joked on your live streams about this before, but like, you know, the lost art of like matte paintings and miniature effects and doing practical stuff. And it's not that they won't, for one, it costs more now to do than most CGI stuff is.
Right.
But a lot of them, the bigger issue now is they're actually having a hard time finding people who can actually do those feats and booking them, because the ones that are left that know that trade are like, they're so scarce. And I know that matte paintings are one in particular. They have a hard time finding people to do that anymore, and so they do CGI backgrounds. And I wish they made practical things like they did like Blade Runner 2049, like the fact that they took the time and the money to actually build the physical sets. I mean, it just translates on camera so well, and I really wish we had more of that. I mean, I'll take CGI. I'm sorry. I will take a practical set, even knowing that it might look dated. I'm aware that it's a film, that it's not real, versus CGI stuff, because I can always tell CGI doesn't have the weight that a practical on-screen effect has. I don't know if the weight makes sense to you, but like your eye, it's like you can sense when something was really there being filmed versus when something is digitally created and inserted into the scene. It doesn't have the same weight. Doesn't flow as there's, and especially in the earlier days, man, like where you could tell when they would put things in after the fact, where if you watch the eye lines of the actors, how they always tried to match them up as best they could, but it's obvious that the eye line isn't following what's really there, and little things like that nag me. And I'll take practical any day, and I don't care if people think it looks hokey. It's just it's what I grew up on, man. Those are the glory days.
Yeah.
So it doesn't jar me.
Said for that, for sure. Suzuki says that he likes how his outfit in the first one was worn to hide his battle damage, rather than just wearing it because Terminators like leather jackets and shades. He didn't start off with a leather jacket in the first Terminator. He started off with that big, bulky sort of, I don't know, army type. I don't know, not army.
Gray.
That big gray, drab looking. It didn't even really show how. Did it? I do not remember it showing how he got the black jacket. But he ended up with the black jacket. I don't know where he got it from. Do you remember? I don't think they ever showed.
I'm drawing a blank on it. I just remember he got it like later on when he went to go raid the apartment of, and the police station and stuff.
Yeah, he had it for the police station. He was sitting. I think he was sitting in his. No, he had it. Yeah, he definitely had it when he raided the police station. Maybe he put it on after he did the surgery on his face. I don't remember.
And it could have been a deleted scene, because there were quite a few like scenes that were cut from that film. I mean, like substantial stuff.
I've seen some of the deleted scenes. I don't recall whether one of those included how he got a leather jacket. But I never thought of
Kyle Reese where Sarah Connor tries to escape again, and he's like has that his one like real emotional scene where he's just like still not adjusting to seeing plants and things, the world, like. When he's saying this, he's picking up like dandelions and stuff, and it's like none of this is supposed to be here. It's not supposed to exist, And I thought that was an important scene.
I wish they had left a lot of those in, probably all of them. But I think when she was running away from him at that time, weren't they arguing about she felt like they should take a particular tactic to try to solve this. It was like an argument. I think it was an argument, and then she was running away from him, not really to escape, because by then she had bought into. But
because that was after they ditched the car. I think after the police station. That was, and he was just
before they went to the hotel.
And I thought that was a good human scene, because he just got so frustrated, and he was obviously like, I can't imagine the same kind of jarring thing of going from our world, say, into future sky, post 2017, whatever, Judgment Day world, and seeing nothing that we have here. I'm sure it's the same as going back and seeing a world that I've never seen this in all my existence, So I thought that was an important scene, and I know that usually those character pieces tend to get the axe first. Plus, whenever they show men crying on film, people get they turn off to the scenes. They want to cut those out. But I thought it was a good scene. You know, I just felt like,
probably especially in the 80s.
He would just burn out at some point, and I could see him doing that no matter how hardened this guy was. You know, it just seemed like, I don't know. It seemed real to me, and I wish they would have kept it.
Yeah, that one and the Cyberdone one for sure. I like both looks as well, but I do think the T2 look is the most cool to me. There's a book and it said he stole the jacket in shades after he killed the gun clerk, I think. Okay. Yeah. You know what? It's very possible it did. I read the book way back when. And that's probably exactly accurate, but I don't remember. I don't remember a lot about the book. I just remember she was a college student in the book. And I think they referenced that also in the movie when he's looking at her ID and it's like a student ID. But she didn't look young enough to really be a college, like your typical college student.
Like community college.
She's supposed to be like 19 or something. In the
there's no way she was
really young. Yeah, like in the book, she was supposed to be really young, quite a bit younger than how she really looks in the movie.
But that's how Hollywood usually casts everybody. You know, she'll play a 19-year-old, but she's really like 28.
Yeah, she was like, I think she was like 25, 26 when they filmed it. Yes, we do see the cord. We see the cord pulling the truck before it explodes. I remember that. They haven't digitally removed that from the movie yet. And yeah. Should they do a Terminator without any of the familiar characters, expand the universe?
They've written a bunch of books about that. They expand it pretty well.
Have they?
Yeah, every time there's a movie, they always do these like expand. Like Salvation had them. T3 had them.
Oh yeah, like the offshoots.
But there's side stories with new characters, right. And they might peripheral, and you can tell that any references to the existing story, or any like if they reference one of the, usually they'll reference a side character or something like someone who's not real important to the story. You can tell they're kind of just put in there to connect the film. But they've done that before, and I think that'd be kind of cool, to be honest. Or you could even do it like in a TV series format or something like that. You know, there's so many. Yeah, I think there's such a universe to explore that. A lot of these films, aside like the first two, which I felt were open and closed, satisfactory and good, well done. But when you start diving into the other films, I think there's a lot more. If you're going to go down that rabbit hole, there's a lot to explore that they just haven't tapped into. And I think I'd like to see that, to be honest. I mean, I get mixed. When something's so perfect, I don't want them to tarnish it because it's the gamble. Because I mean, look at the track record of the last 3 films they've done. But
right, the TV show was pretty good though.
Well, yeah. That was. But does that one I can't remember. Does that one run concurrent with the like? Does it retcon the films, or is it run like as a sequel to the first 2?
It's a sequel to the first 2.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was. I was pleasantly surprised by that movie. That movie, the TV show, and I was really bummed when it was canceled.
Yep, agree. Arnold as much as Terminator as Sarah Connor.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. So I don't know. People maybe for the longest time thought Star Wars wouldn't be the same without Luke and Leia Skywalker and Han Solo, but look at all these different things that have branched out in the Star Wars universe. There's so much material there. Yeah. Not as much material in Terminator, in the Terminator universe as in Star Wars, but I don't know. Honestly, if it was stellar writing, really good acting, I could take it, but I would go in not sure. Just like how I wasn't sure about Sarah Connor Chronicles because they didn't have Linda Hamilton. They had Lena Headey. And I was like, I don't know that she's going to convince me, but I was able to buy into it.
Even if they were like, we got James Cameron back after, I don't trust him now.
I don't trust him anymore, no.
He's not credible to me. So, yeah, maybe it is best that they just leave it be. I don't know. I mean, I guess anything that they put out that says Terminator on it, I probably will inevitably watch, but I'm turning into a cynical old man, I guess, but.
It can be done. I'd take a mini series. Yeah, like a limited series, maybe on Netflix or something like that.
Yeah, that'd probably.
I don't know.
Just don't. I don't like things being all goofed up nowadays.
I've got my alarm to go. Yeah.
Can I borrow that for a sec?
Why?
I just want to look at my throat.
Okay. That was Arturo was reminding me. He's going to be streaming at 9. And so I have my alarm set to wrap things up at 9 because I have also work I need to do. But so he came in here. He's all masked up because he's got something going on with his sinuses, and we're like, we don't know if it's sinuses or do you have a cold or what. So anyway, okay. Cyberdyne cryptocurrency. Yeah, replacing. You cannot replace. You can't do that. I don't think it has worked very well. It didn't work very well with Emilia Clarke. So.
And she's decent in other things. I just thought that she didn't.
Her physique was a turnoff. Like she didn't look like she had done one push-up in her whole life to me. So I was just like, you don't look like Sarah Connor. I can't believe you. Derek, would you attempt Arnold's chest day? 310 for 20, take weight off, and then do 10 reps, then take another plate off and do 10 to 15 reps to shock the muscle.
Sure, if Arnold's there to help me, I'll be.
He's there.
Am I allowed to say that I can't lift 315 right now? I don't think I don't know. That's a lot of weight. Huh?
It is a lot of weight. Were you able to? What's the heaviest you?
Yeah, 2011, actually just before Christmas Day, I peaked at 300. I hit 300 on my own, unassisted. I didn't have a spotter or anything. So who knows? I probably could have pushed more, but I wasn't. Without a spotter, you don't.
Yeah, it's test a little dangerous. That. Right.
Yeah. Now, and that was after I had my surgery stuff done and everything. So that was everything changed after that, and then now I could not do 300, but if I would love to work up to that, if he's here to help me, I'll do whatever he tells me. Do this, I'll do it. Hey, no problem. I think Arnold's just an amazing guy, and I can't stress enough that if he's just. Shoot, he could be Jim Jones for all I know. You know what I mean? Just do this, and okay, man, whatever you say.
Yeah, I know. He's just, I don't know. I watched that inspirational. I did a reaction to this inspirational speech that he made, and it was just like, I just filled with such optimism. It was like, there's nothing that can keep me down. I can do anything. That kind of.
What about you, Sin? Would you do 315 for 20?
No, I absolutely would not. I think the heaviest, honestly, well, see, when I heavy lifted, I call it heavy lifting because it was heavy, but I didn't go to the gym. I did it at home, dumbbells, and barbells, but I didn't really have adequate setup for barbells. So it would be dumbbells. Like maybe I would have like 50-pound dumbbells, doing squats with that, or also doing like, presses with that. And I remember being afraid that what if I slipped and this dumbbell came crashing down on my face? Because I was by myself, but then it ended up that, doing squats with that sort of weight, or even just doing squats at all for any length of time especially with heavy weights, it was killing my knees. So I had to stop. Or I would never walk again. I literally could hardly walk. And when it got to where it was like that every day for a week, I was like, I can't continue to do this. I just can't, unfortunately. So.
They should try some of Arnold's supplements. Maybe it would have helped. He had a good one. I was
taking glucosamine and all, but I just have genetically bad knees. Even
I'm just joking.
Body weight
about 315, getting to 315 in no time.
Sure.
Now his supplement line is kind of a bust because I know that Muscle Farm got sued over one of his specific products for they got for protein spiking. It means it's like you can look up what it means, but they what they were advertising on the label wasn't what was being found by third-party testing. And Arnold's name was tied to that. And I know he got really upset about that and didn't renew his contract in 2 years. And it was kind of a bust because some of the other things were actually pretty decent. I took a couple of them and I liked the mentality. He had all these old school supplements, basic things, arginine and, using creatine and melatonin. I mean, just things that were time tested and true, not following all the modern high stimulant trends of pre-workouts and stuff like that. So, and that's what that pill bottle I sent you is from. So.
Oh, okay.
That's from his line of stuff. So.
Yeah. Okay. You like the container, the green. Yeah.
The green container. Yeah. And that was it. Everything about it was themed green. All the bottles were themed green. The labels themed. Okay. Even the little scoop in the bottle was green like that.
Green. Was that color green? Okay. Have you ever seen the Terminator RoboCop epic rap battles of history? I've seen one. I don't know about you.
I have not, but I played the video game. I rented the video game for Super Nintendo when I was a kid, so that's as much.
There was a crossover video game?
Yeah, Terminator vs. RoboCop.
Oh, okay.
And I think there was even a comic book run, if memory serves. I remember renting it. It had a really cool cover because it was embossed like the Cyberdyne chip, like black with the little squares and stuff. And
so check Terminator or RoboCop?
I have to pick?
Yeah.
I love RoboCop. Well, I know for you. Oh man, Terminator RoboCop. I'd probably pick the film franchise, or were we talking the robotic character?
Well, I don't know. Does that make a difference?
I think RoboCop is a harrowing story of humanity, and Peter Weller's an amazing actor. Don't you know that line where he asked his partner if she knew his wife and daughter, and she goes, "Oh no, I did," and he's like, "I can feel them, but I can't remember them." It's like one of the saddest things ever.
It's been a long time since I've seen.
Oh God, it's like cutting onions right there. But
cutting onions.
No, I'd probably just go with Terminators. I think the first two are just such solid films, but
yeah,
I also think RoboCop, the first one on its own merit, is a great film. So
it's fun. I enjoyed it, but I've never been super in love with it for some reason.
We're as young boys, we all wanted to be Terminator, and then we wanted to be RoboCop. But then didn't understand that you had to die to be RoboCop. But it probably wouldn't have been a big deal if you come back. But it was kind of an influential thing. It was kind of funny because it's such a violent. RoboCop is and Terminator, both very very violent films.
Yeah.
And they made toy lines for kids.
I know, right?
And video games. I mean, I still have some of the toys.
That was like back in the 80s, and a lot of stuff that went on in film, I don't know, doesn't necessarily, it certainly wouldn't be deemed as okay to market it to kids today, for sure.
Oh no, definitely not. Sorry, I got distracted for a second. No, with Terminator 2, I had with RoboCop, they actually had, with Terminator 2, they had a line of toys, and I had this little toy set that I got for like my birthday or Christmas, I can't remember, but you got to basically make a gooey kind of mold. It had it was like basically a T800. You got a little endoskeleton, you put him in this little jar, and it looks like a Cyberdyne Skynet factory, and then you pour this goop in there, and the goop would go funnel on and wrap itself around the endoskeleton, and then you'd let it dry, and it was supposed to have this like goopy skin that you could peel off. Like battle damage, and I have that. I still have some of it somewhere in a box. But yeah, that was a weird toy. It was like creepy crawlers almost, So I just remember that. But I remember RoboCop had toys as well, and they had caps that you put in the back. They were a literal cap gun, but they were a toy. You put caps in the back of the toy, and you could fire him like a gun mechanism.
Oh my god!
And these are action figures, so it's this kind of.
Jeez. What do you think about this question?
Oh. Yeah.
They're both the same model. They'd probably both take each other out.
I'm gonna say T3, the T850, since he was an upgrade. So
that wasn't the question.
No. I almost want to feel like the villainous one is more driven, but I know it's just posturing. They have a mission, and they probably go at it with the same drive.
The villainous one was all about killing.
Right.
The hero was all about protecting, not.
And I think it would be easier for something to succeed to kill versus trying to protect.
Right.
So I think the first one would probably win in its own. Eventually, I think it would win. I don't know. That would be my thing. Maybe I'm just tying into how I thought he was scary to begin with, so he just seems more villainous and scary, and But then again, if T2 800 got his little Gatling gun, I think he'd make short work of the other one.
True, he would.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, well. We're closing in on 9, and Arturo's going to need to borrow the internet.
Oh, okay. So,
I guess we can probably start to wrap this up. This was fun. I can't believe 3. I set the alarm for 9 to remind myself because I didn't want to, go over when he's trying to get on, and also because I had work to do. And I was like, I doubt we're going to go 3 hours. So look at us. We're 3 hours.
What about? Oh, don't forget, Arnold was in Dr. Dolittle too.
He was?
Yeah, he was the voice of the Siberian wolf or whatever.
I thought
that was
his
a cameo?
face was in there. Okay, Derek.
Yeah. No, this popped in my head as I was sitting here. So, okay, can you name a favorite, list off a couple of your very favorite Arnold films that are not Terminator?
Well, obviously True Lies.
Okay.
And The Last Stand.
Okay.
And Conan the Barbarian. Okay. Predator.
Yeah, so we didn't even talk about Predator.
I know we didn't talk about Predator. That? Whoa. Kindergarten Cop. I mean, there's several non-Terminator. So, like, Arnold is like my favorite action movie star. And the reason I know this is because I like several of his other non-Terminator movies. Mm-hmm. So probably my next, obviously 1 and 1.5 are Terminator 2 and The Terminator because they're like so closely tied together. I really can't completely separate them. But probably right behind that is True Lies. I love True Lies. And all of those are James Cameron movies. But I like several of his films. So what about you?
Yeah, well, I still think Terminator 2 are the best, but I'm going to say aside that
non-Terminator movies.
Yeah. I gotta say Predator for one. That movie just
that's such a good film.
And the cast is it's just like these is so good, and how many good one-liners are in that for comedic things for not really being a comedy movie, and
right.
I like that one. I'd probably go with Eraser. I'd probably say Eraser. I really like Eraser. Yeah. I love the opening scene where he saves that one mob guy who was ratting out. He goes, "It won't happen. Next time you're dead, it won't happen again." I thought it was a cool scene. That was just such a cool part. And then, I don't know. I might even go with. It might be unpopular, but I just think Maggie always really resonates with me, and I like that he stepped off to do something a very vulnerable role where he was not really the physically strong hero, you know what I mean? And I that's going to stick with me.
That's definitely sentimental type of film. Very sad, touching. Yeah, it does help with testosterone deficiency. It's very testosterone heavy. I remember him saying how they wanted him to be like messing around with a girl in the movie, and he fought back against that because he's like, no, this is dumb. We're like in this life or death. Something's coming after us and killing us. Oh yeah, let's go get some nookie in the woods or something like that. And he's like, no, and I agree with that. I think that would just be dumb. It's like, okay, it's gratuitous at this point. That makes no sense.
You really think he fought that? He clearly loves Colombian housewives. I'm just housemaids. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. That went too far. That's the one thing.
Oh, Arnold, you were so dumb. So dumb. I love him, but, he's done some dumb stuff. And that was one of them. But I still love him. I will always look up to him for his accomplishments. And I just appreciate the hell out of him. And I could talk for another hour or two about Arnold and his movies. I really could. Unfortunately, I have to wrap it up. So I'm going to draw this to a close. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. This was a great discussion and puts me in the mood to watch Arnold. But I have work to do. So, so I'm going to say goodbye and see you guys later. Adios. Bye.